It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Not here on Declare Your Independence because we know what's up. Well, it makes you a little less fearful. Doesn't mean you're not going to get the impact of, but are you prepared? Are you prepped? Do you understand what's going on? Well, Phranq and I have been doing the Chump Report since 10 years as of August. It was like 2015.
Too long.
Now, it's long. I don't know if it's too long, but it's definitely long. The one thing that a lot of the anarchists out there, they're just like, oh man, I can't believe you're doing. You can call it the Chump Report. Who cares about the Trump? And my thing has been, you're still voting. This is every story. It's all the same, over and over and over. Well, Etienne de la Boutier squared wanted to have his say. Well, a few years ago, he came on the show and he got to have his say. Well, Phranq's kind of, seeing the light a little bit. It's just not, what he had hoped. I mean, hope is a powerful thing. You want, that gets a lot of people to not give up. Why, Mr. Anderson, why do you persist? Because I choose to. A lot of that is hope. And it's a very powerful human quality to be able to, suspend, belief on that it's hopeless and, that resistance is not futile. And that's kind of where Phranq came from. But I have my faith somewhere else. It's in humanity, in incentives, in wanting to keep breathing in and out and prevent anybody that's trying to stop you from breathing in and out and being free and whatever. No. Think I'll decline. But at a convenience, we always totally agree. I totally agree. And for Etienne to come up and say, well, I don't agree. Bullshit. You're on the internet. You totally agreed to something. I guarantee it. But, there's levels, and he wants to have his say. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up with Etienne.
Actually, the real reason is that Ernie keeps losing, so he needs backup.
Yeah, that's it. Over 10 years, how wrong have I? Ernie, you're wrong. Right. Okay. So Etienne, all right, get your say, man. Give him what for. Tell him what's up, and we'll let him respond.
Well, I should start out by anybody that's not familiar with my work. I am a voluntaryist author. My book is called Government: The Biggest Scam in History Exposed. And in the book, I make the case that government, number one, is always illegitimate. It's impossible to have a moral, logical, legitimate government if you can't, if you can't delegate a right that you do. If you don't have a right yourself, you don't have the right to steal somebody's money and call it taxation. If you don't have the right to make up rules for everybody and call it laws, then you can't delegate a right you don't possess yourself to a representative to represent you doing something that you do not have the ability to do yourself. And so where did the government get the right to do all the things that it did if if people can't delegate, if we the people can't delegate rights we don't have, the government has just essentially claimed them and is doing literally a Jedi mind trick on the population, where they force kids into these mandatory government schools and teach them before they're old enough to really question the logic and morality of what they're told. They're running these unethically manipulative techniques that I break down in the book to get the kids into a religion of believing in the state and believing in the legitimacy, the necessity, the desirability of having a state. Just a couple more points on the complete impossibility of having a legitimate government. You cannot be bound by a social contract you didn't sign. So if you didn't personally sign the Constitution, you're not bound by it. And if Ernie and I can't vote that Phranq gives us all of his money because there's two of us and one of him, then it doesn't matter if there's three of us or four of us. And so democracy is the moral equivalent of gang rape or a lynching or whatever. And so there really is, it's been the biggest scam in all of human history. And so number one, to be having the Chump Report for 10 years and promoting the legitimacy of something that's obviously illegitimate on its face, number one, that's dumb, and that's not it's frustrating to have to listen to it, because I'm a big fan of Declare Your Independence. I'm a big fan of Ernie's work and everything like that. And I just had to sit there and just shake my head and go, I cannot believe that they're pretending that this television performer is a clown. Now that's my
you're throwing me in under the bus here.
Well, so then number two. Wait, hold on. The callers. So that point number one is government's illegitimate on its face. And then point number two is that everything that's going on in Washington, D.C., whether you believe, so I'm a voluntarist, I don't believe in the legitimacy, the necessity, or the desirability of having a government. And so, but even if you don't believe, even if you believe in having a government, a strict constitutional government bound down by the chains of the Constitution, even if you believe that, almost everybody that has two neurons to rub together should recognize by now that the government in Washington, D.C. is being run as a criminal enterprise. Period. End of story. There are trillions of dollars that are missing from the Pentagon.
Are you saying the United States federal government is as bad or worse than Minnesota? Is that what you're saying?
I'm 100%. It's thousands of times, because we're talking about trillions of dollars. We're talking about trillions of dollars that are missing from the Pentagon, and somewhere over 16 trillion according to the work of Dr. Mark Skidmore and Catherine Austin Fitts. Their website is, I think it's Where's the Money, or the Missing Trillions, but you can put in Dr. Mark Skidmore and you can find the scholarship and the behind that. But there's over $1 trillion missing from HUD and the post office and other government programs that can account for over $1 trillion. And then there's been, according to an investigation called Bloomberg did, there's over 16 trillion that was handed to private banks and private companies like AIG and others during the TARP and the TALF and the Maiden Lane bailouts. And it was funny because I wanted to get my facts and figures straight last night, because I knew I was going to be on here making this point. And Wikipedia does not talk about this at all. They pretend it was the original 750 billion. They don't get into it. And so that's one of the reasons why we create a Liberator flash drive, because all the stuff that's going down the memory hole about where'd all this money go, we make it uncensorable. And one of the things that we have on our flash drive of Freedom, the Liberator, is we've got some of the totals of not only did they give the banks trillions of dollars in these bailouts, private companies that already have an exorbitant privilege to create money out of thin air using fractional reserve banking, where they're stealing the value out of everybody else's money. And that's what's paying for this monopolization of the media. And that's why Trump's on every, thing. And that's why there's so much controlled opposition. And that's why, because they have got unlimited funds, because they're stealing trillions with a T. But the second point is that this is obviously a criminal enterprise, and Trump has obviously been installed as an actor playing the role of the president, playing the role of a billionaire. He's probably made money now, but just as a reminder, if we go back in time, Trump went bankrupt 4 times, and in his last major bankruptcy in 2093, he was actually bailed out by Rothschild Inc., and the bankruptcy restructuring unit at Rothschild Inc. at the time was run by Wilbur Ross, who ended up being installed as the Secretary of Commerce in the first Trump administration. So the Rothschilds are behind the State of Israel. So you've got a Zionist entity that bails Trump out, has him by the short hairs, and then he is given a television show. Phranq, out of curiosity, do you know who Trump's theatrical agent is?
Theatrical agent? No, I do not. Go ahead.
Okay, so you've been doing this for 10 years and you haven't figured out who Trump's. Nobody's like
theatrical agent.
Yes, Trump has a theatrical. Trump is an actor, and for The Apprentice, and his theatrical agent is a gentleman by the name of Ari.
NBC. Yes, go ahead.
His theatrical agent is a gentleman by the name of Ari, A-R-I, Emanuel. Ari Emanuel is a Zionist. He's the brother of Rahm Emanuel, who was the chief of staff during the Obama administration and ended up being mayor of Chicago. There's a third brother named Ezekiel Emanuel, who's a eugenicist that thinks that everybody ought to die at age 75 and wrote a book about everybody ought to die at age 75, and he was on Biden's COVID task force.
Wait, real quick. Why don't you define theatrical agent? Since you're coining that term, either that's an official, a position that he hired, or that's your interpretation. So how do you define?
So the same, yeah.
All right. So he's in the so-called phone book under theatrical agent. So what do you mean by theatrical agent?
He's one of the most famous theatrical agents in Hollywood.
Well, I know who he is. It's just he doesn't go by theatrical agent, but
in fact he is supposedly the theatrical agent that the movie Entourage is about. And so, he's one of the characters, there's a character in there that's represented by him. He's one of the most famous super agents in Hollywood. And he was behind the scripting that gave Trump the gravitas to essentially run for president. So they took a guy who had 4 bankruptcies and had to be bailed out by the Rothschilds, and then they created a television show about him that made him look like a competent businessman after 4 bankruptcies and having to be bailed out and restructured multiple times. And who I believe they've literally had to keep afloat because he's so incompetent. He did not start with $1 million. He started, this is a guy that was handed Fred Trump's empire, $400 million empire, and then ran it into the ground 4 times and had to be bailed out. But if you watch the television show that they created for him to give him the gravitas to be elevated to the presidency, so that he could, because they had him by the short hairs. And what I mean by the short hairs is, number 1, they had him because they bailed him out, and number 2, he's obviously in on this Epstein thing. They've obviously got him in compromising positions. He's Epstein's best friend. And so the Mossad has had this guy by the short hairs, because I guarantee you they've got incriminating stuff on him through the Epstein files. And so a guy that is 100% pure thing gets elevated and made to look like a successful businessman. He's given the media training. He's given the artificial gravitas, and then he's elevated into the presidency with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of Zionist money. And so right now it's over $400 million just from the Adelsons. It's $400 million over the 2 election cycles just from the Adelsons. So you've got a Zionist theatrical agent, you've got a Zionist funder, and now he's transferring. He cranked it up. We were giving like $3 billion a year to Israel. Now we've given over $20 billion a year. We've given Palantir technology. We've stood silent and not stood silent. We have helped the genocide of the Palestinian people by giving them the targeting software Lavender, that Palantir helped develop, which allows the Israeli military to know when an entire family is in one room, so they can get everybody with one Hellfire or one, guided munition in one shot. And so there is a obvious quid pro quo between the people that installed him, created his legend, had him by the short hairs through, in Washington, D.C., what Epstein was doing is known as a brownstone operation. So they had swept him up in a brownstone operation. They've obviously got incriminating photographs and video of him. They've obviously saved him from bankruptcy. They've obviously installed him in the presidency with $400 million just from the Adelsons. Okay, and now there's obvious quid pro quo of him transferring billions of dollars. So what's the organized crime of government? And these are just organized crime families. The U.S. government's organized crime, the Israeli government's organized crime. They're running the same unethically manipulative techniques on their. I just did an Israeli talk show last night where we talked about 2 nights ago, where we talked about the fact that Israel is running the same unethically manipulative techniques on their population as we're running on our population to get them to go along with tricking them into having a ruling class, tricking them into government is legitimate, even though it's obviously not. It's not logical. It's not ethical. It's not moral. And so they're running this game, okay, where there's this obvious quid pro quo where they're spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to buy up AIPAC, to install congressional critters in the House and in the Senate and in the presidency. And then those congressional critters and executive branch moles then transfer in the Trump administration alone, 20 plus billion, okay, that you can put a number on. There's probably more that's in military intelligence and help from Iran. If you included us striking Iran and striking Israel's enemies in Yemen and Iran, it would probably be way, 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 way more than that. And now we're threatening Iran, which is a policy that the number one beneficiary is Israel. And I've been frustrated because, Frank, it doesn't seem like you can figure this out.
Figure what out?
That organized crime, Israel has installed a front man into the presidency that is transferring billions of dollars and enabling the genocide of the Palestinian people, and is literally stealing, has turned the White House into a private for his family, that he's personally benefiting in the most corrupt ways that has ever been seen in the presidency. Like the violation
for Israel, is that what you're
for Israel, and for his own personal building up his own personal wealth in crypto scams and in real estate scams, and what's going on with Trump resort and hotel in Saudi Arabia, and what's going on with receiving $400 million jets, and what's going on. There has never been a criminal of this obviously violating the emoluments clause of the Constitution. Even if you believe in the Constitution, which I don't, like, if we're going to have this rule book, then let's have a real rule book. And like he's violating every aspect of it, and he's a serial liar, and he's got troops on the streets. He's got masked goons on the streets, which has been a policy. So he's acclimated. They're acclimated. It's not Trump. And again, it's not Trump. Trump is literally a puppet, and somebody above him has made the decision that we're going to have troops on the streets. We're going to have masked goons that can sweep people up, and he is participating in the acclimation of that for the American people right now. And yet you continue to pretend like he is legitimate when he is not legitimate in so many different ways, and shouldn't have an ounce of respect from anybody in this country. And it's been obvious for years and years and years and years. And it makes me wonder what's going on that you cannot see it.
He watches CNN and MSNBC too much, so I don't have to.
That's right. That's what I do. All right. Well, is it my turn, Ernie?
There's your turn.
man.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All
I don't want to
And
dominate.
Etienne, he didn't interrupt you, so let him
Yeah. Go ahead.
go, man.
No, that's okay. And by the way, if you want to interrupt me, I don't mind. Because I think you and I are a bit brief with it. Ernie, though, he knows how to take over and commandeer. So I've been battling Ernie for a while, so it's all good though. Well, first off, in all seriousness, I don't know. Have you been? And look, I don't blame you for not listening to the show from the the interpretation that you have of not just Trump, but from what you assume my position is. But a lot of what you're talking about is not really apropos for what my beliefs are. I mean, even Ernie would tell you that I'm not obtuse to all the many things that you've been talking about. And it's not like I just turned a leaf last week or so. There's a big difference. I mean, there's so much stuff that you brought up, and I appreciate all those points. And we could take each one individually. It's kind of you're throwing a lot of stuff out there, and
Let's not.
I've been taking some good notes. Yeah, but the one thing is there was a big difference with me, and I try to bring this up with Ernie, of what I personally believe versus what I think is happening, or what I think is pragmatic, or what's occurring. And sometimes that confuses people, especially ideologues, who it's all about one view, and it has to be that way. And I have my own personal views of what I think something should be. I mean, ultimately, I prefer Ron Paul to be president, and a diehard a libertarian viewpoint. Now, granted, Ernie and I might disagree, because if Ron Paul becomes president, that means someone had to vote for him, and of course that won't be Ernie or you, because the two of you won't vote. So that kind of goes into that little circular loop. But let's just say, in theory, if people voted, I'm okay for libertarian administration. That's what I prefer. I wouldn't be voting for Donald Trump, as I confused many of our listeners. Originally in 2016, I was supporting.
Frank, I'm sorry. Can I just interrupt you for 1 second?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, because because you made a point, and I just want to rebut it.
Go ahead.
I think I literally just laid out the impossibility of having a legitimate moral government. I literally laid it out step by step that it is 100% impossible to have a moral legitimate government. So if you're on an island with 10 people, okay. Mm-hmm. Right. I want you to explain to the audience and Ernie and myself right now how that you could form a legitimate moral government where 6 people would have the ability to steal the wealth and make up rules for the other 4, with it still being moral and logical. So, could you do it with a coronation? Could you do it by writing it down on a fancy piece of paper?
John.
Go.
Wait. So define moral legitimate government.
So, back to my point. If
it seems
Ernie
like an oxymoron. I mean, can you have legitimate government?
Yeah, can you have legitimate government?
Well, legitimate. As defined by legitimate. If everyone agrees that that's the government, then it's legitimate.
But not everybody. Well, then it's not a government.
Moral is different. So how do you? What do you mean?
So what I mean is, if Ernie and I, if you say that we're going to have it because of a vote, and Ernie and I vote that you have to give us your money, and you're saying that the fact that our government is legitimate because people voted for it, okay, can Ernie and I vote that you have to give us all your money? Because there's 2 of us and there's 1 of you. If we're all 3 of us are in a room, how many people does it take to make something that would be immoral and illogical now moral and logical, because the mob outnumbers its victim? Is it 3 people? Is it 10 people? Is it 200 million people? What's the magic number that takes something that would be immoral and illegitimate? If Ernie and I did it to you, what's that magic number that makes it moral and legitimate?
All right, so we see that gets into just the philosophy of governance, and it's something that's the purview of libertarians.
That's their philosophy.
It's the purview of libertarians, which I love. I love hanging out with libertarians about this. So first off, I guess what I would say is legitimate and moral, where those 2 areas would cross over, would be that if I'm on that island and you guys, it's like with Lord of the Flies, right? And which is one of my favorite books, by the way. I'm sure for all of us, for libertarians, that's a very apropos book, But if everyone votes and they vote to have a certain government and I don't like it, then as long as I'm allowed to leave, I go, all right, I'm going to go somewhere else. If a certain group becomes a gang and they're going to do their thing, as long as they're not a nasty gang and they're going to sit there and just kill me or whatever, if I don't like it, if I don't like the rules or what this gang is starting to do, it's like a group of friends. Hate to call them friends, but it's like if you hang out with people and they're doing things that you don't like. When I was younger and some of my friends were getting into drugs and smoking, it wasn't my thing. So I went and I did something else. I met different people. So as long as I'm able to go somewhere else, now if you're on an island, it's a little tough, but if I can go to another part of my island and do my own thing, to me, I have no problem with that. Right?
You've now changed the thing. So you're on an island. So six.
Well, you're the one that said an island. You brought up an island.
No, I know, but so six of the people they vote that you and three other people are going to do all the work, and they get to take your coconuts because they're the majority, you're the minority, and so you go to another part of the island and you've got 10 coconuts that you've harvested with your own labor and everything like that,
right.
And they come and they track you down and they're like, you didn't listen. We had a vote. Those are our coconuts, and then they take your coconuts and they keep coming back every paycheck or every 2 weeks, and they keep taking your coconuts. Is that
hire the three amigos?
I understand what you're saying. I'm just pointing out, though, and again, the island thing makes it challenging, but like if you don't like the system, then you go somewhere else. That's my point, right?
No. That's the argument of a gang. If you don't like our gang, then leave our territory.
Exactly. No. I completely agree. Look, philosophically, I agree with what both of you are talking about. Like I said, I've been a libertarian when I was 14 and a half or 15 it was. I mean, this is like I said, I voted for Ron Paul the first time in '88. People were laughing. Like,
they can get you off everything.
I'm just saying, it's like I get the concept. It's just that's my philosophy. I agree with you guys. But where I guess I found myself different through years of just whether it's traveling or maybe in medicine, psychiatry, and anthropology and sociology and all this. Now, I'm not trying to throw a bunch of like yuppie crap at you, and trust me, I'm not playing some stupid doctor card. I never do that. But I'm just saying it's an interest of mine. It's always been an interest of mine. In fact, I was going to go into anthropology and sociology as a major. So I realized there was no money in that field, so I gave it up, went into medicine. But I love the human endeavor, the human biology, and there's so much I learned about just at the end of the day, and also just through life, is just humanity. And humans. And look, I'm not trying to. Let me be clear. This is such a fun conversation, and I really appreciate it. I want to be very clear in the beginning. I am not trying to get around your discussion or your question. I want to be really clear with that. Sometimes, as Ernie unfortunately knows, I can be a bit long-winded trying to dial into a point. But it reminds me of Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek. And he was talking about like the whole point of Star Trek and the humanism and such. And he says much of his philosophy all comes down to the first episode of Next Generation, Encounter at Farpoint Station, which is when Q shows up and all this. Anyway, I won't go into the whole episode. But basically, what he's trying to bring up in that episode, in many episodes of Star Trek, is the duality of humanity. And when I was younger and I heard what I'm about to tell you, I didn't quite get it. But the older I get, for me, it makes sense. And that's what I think this comes down to, is that humanity, human beings, on one hand, are one of the most evil, decrepit, disgusting creatures on this planet. I mean, you don't have other, even cockroaches don't attack and kill other cockroaches. Human beings will. And we can go all day. I mean, just look at Epstein and the Zionists and whatever people are willing to do to sit back and talk about that maybe a certain group of people think that they're, the chosen people. And the chosen people have to use pedophiles and extortion, and co-opting another government in order to keep themselves, to keep their so-called, religion to God. You know, you could argue it that way. I mean, it's an example of how we justify things in our own way. You know, there are even some people who are very critical of religions who think, okay, you can like do a crime and then do a few Hail Marys and you're still going to heaven, for instance. And some of the skeptical people and cynical will point that out. So there's all sorts of, we can go all day about, you know, the failings of humanity and the disgusting nature of humanity. And just, I mean, we don't have to go further into it. I think we all know the deep holes that humanity has gone to and can get to.
Yep.
And yet at the same time, like Gene Roddenberry says, and it's true, that humanity is just beautiful in what it can create, of what humans can do, the love that humanity can give. You know, there's no other creature on the planet that can give love and compassion than human beings. I mean, just to give just one example. I remember in my sociology class how every other animal does not take care of another a baby that's not theirs. I mean, look at primates. You know, if you have a gorilla or a lion, you know, which is not a primate, but, you know, if they take over a pride of a female with other kids, the first thing it does is it kills all the cubs. And then, because it doesn't want to be raising someone else's genetic material. The only creature on the planet Earth that will take care of another person's genes are human beings. You know, people are adopted fathers, for instance. Now, in all fairness, that's where a lot of sexual abuse comes from, as non-related fathers. But that's where it gets challenging. But just the fact that you have people doing that, it just shows the beauty of humanity, of compassion, and the arts. And just so much beauty in humanity, and that
we're going to come together and vote for your crap.
And that duality. It sits at the core, as I get older, of humanity. And that's what Gene Roddenberry got. It's amazing. I mean, of course, I love the early episodes, the Tribbles and all that when I was a kid. But the older you get, you start to see that. And that's what Star Trek's about. And also just how I see people. So it's not an easy answer, because my philosophical perspective of, you know, everyone gets to do their own thing, and who gives you the right to do X, Y, Z. I completely agree with you guys, and sometimes it confuses people who think, doesn't Phranq understand? It's like, who gives someone else the authority? So you're saying if a bunch of us get around and we vote that we can whip you, then we get allowed to because we're legitimate and we're the government. We got a shiny badge and all that. No, of course I don't believe that. But at the same time, there's also, and you know, this is the frustrating part, is there's the reality of humanity. There's the fact that, and Ernie, I appreciate it. Ernie's given me a lot of credit for this point that really opened him up to a lot of things. Besides the fact that, you know, Disney Star Wars sucks. Yeah, is the issue of antisocial disorder and sociopathy, and that was a nice bridge that Ernie and I both got to talk about. I mean, it opened my view of the world in many ways on a personal note as well. That's how I learned about it, and Ernie as well, with all of the so many stories that Ernie has that he could tell sometime later of, you know, this story and this interaction with this politician and this situation. And as much as Ernie's one of the smartest guys I know with a lot of this, even Ernie, I think, admitted that there was things that would occur. And he's like, I don't quite get how, like, I know these people are all corrupt and all, but I can't quite wrap my head around it. And once you understand they're sociopaths, and when you understand what antisocial is, it clicks. Because the problem is we're looking to other human beings the way that we are as normal human beings. But when you have 4% of the human population that are antisocial, and they tend to be the ones in leadership positions and who become, right? I mean, you see the world differently. Now, you know, I'm not getting to think about eugenics and get rid of sociopaths and all, but when you understand that these people are out there and they're charming and they get people to follow them. And then you understand also, I'm not trying to throw too many random things out. I'm just trying to create a milieu of my point. The issue of primates, the idea that if you sit there and you can, if you get 20 or 100, let's say 100 primates, apes or whatever together, automatically one of them is going to be the alpha. And then there's automatically a pecking order that occurs. And if you can take a bunch of apes that Dr. Jane Goodall would go out and have, tea and crimpets with, who studied all this, Or do this next best thing. Go to the local prison here up in up North Phoenix. Just go to a prison, and the prison guards will tell you the same thing. You know, if a new guy shows up, you know, it's like, you know, the alpha will just kick you in the ass, punch you out, and just to be clear, who's in charge? You know, and there's a whole pecking order that goes on, and so we are at our core just primates that do this. Now, the problem with libertarians, and I say this with respect, honestly, because I myself include pretty much like you two. Ernie will say, not enough. But it's that libertarians, we really do have I don't want to call it an anarchy gene, but just we're very, very self-reliant. And I respect that. I think that's what makes us unique and special. But we're not, we're nowhere near a majority. We're a far, far minority. People who don't follow others. Primates follow others. It's one of the key components of primates, is that they get into the pecking order. Now, I don't remember the exact number. I do remember from the sociology about this, but it's something like, I don't know, like 1% or 2% of the population, they've actually, they believe don't have the hierarchy gene. Like, they don't have it. And I remember reading this in class, or actually a lecture, and the first thing I thought of, oh, that sounds like my libertarian friends. Like it completely, you know, coded in with where I was. And I was an odd student myself back in the day. So I saw that in that world. So, you know, you have some people who just don't follow along. They're very independent. Now, in our world,
Frank, hold on a second. I'm going to, because I want to throw in here and make your point for you. So I'm going to help you here. So, like, I agree.
Yeah,
with what,
dude. Can you do it in 30 seconds? 30 minutes?
Ernie, go ahead.
Okay.
Well, I don't know, because our friend here, and I mean this respectfully, it sounds like you. I mean, I don't blame you. You haven't heard a lot of our content about my defense of some of these. So I just don't want an oversimplification that I'm just some sycophant for Trump and I haven't figured it out, as you've said a few times. And I understand. So that's why I'm breaking this down a little bit slower. But go ahead.
So in my newest book, it's called To See the Cages, to Leave It, 25 Techniques the Few Use to Control the Many. One of the techniques so the government and the monopoly media are running a variety of unethically manipulative techniques on the population to get them to go along with having a ruling class.
They wouldn't do that. That'd be wrong.
And so one of the techniques that I describe is the psychological phenomenon you're talking about is known as evolutionary behavior theory, and that most humans have an innate biological desire to have a leader from our tribal past, because it was a benefit for the tribe to have a strong leader. You know, and so most people are biologically predisposed to have a strong leader unless they themselves are a leader. So the 1 to 2 to 3% or whatever it is that you're referring to are the people that are naturally leaders and don't see the need to have a leader themselves. And so what I'm arguing is that the organized crime system that is running government on the population, think of government as a technique for robbing and controlling
the gang with the flag.
Yeah, they're exploiting their understanding of behavioral psychology that you just outlined to trick the population into going along with something that is not in their interest. But to get back to my original point, is the whole thing is illegitimate on its face. And so if you believe that government is legitimate and then you should be able, and logical and moral, then you should either, number one, be able to explain to me and to Ernie and to the audience how a group gets to be the ruling class in a way that is actually moral and logical. Or if you're going to concede that it is immoral and illogical and impossible to have a ruling class, as is my point, and as is the the very specific facts and points that I've brought up, if you concede that, then why are you still talking about having a president and voting for Ron Paul or whatever? Because then if you're going to be intellectually honest, you'd have to say, hey, there's no way to have a moral, legitimate government. We've got to do it some other way. And then, the kind of the good news message of my work is, hey, guess what? The world is this. We don't need government. The world's a self-organizing system. It produces spontaneous order. And everything that you want, that people have been indoctrinated to want the government to do or expect the government, except for redistribution. But a lot of what the government does, the majority of what the government does is provide services, whether that service is delivering the mail or air traffic control or running the worst train system on the planet or whatever it is. All of that would be done better, faster, and cheaper. And if the government wasn't stealing the value of everybody's money, everybody would be dramatically wealthier. There would be way more prosperity in the economy. There would be way more economic growth. Businesses would have to pay people more to be able to compete for workers and everything. And we would be a lot better off and wealthier without government. And so if that's the case, then why would, if either you have to explain to me and Ernie how you have a legitimate moral government, or you have to concede that point and go, you're right, we got to do something else. Hold on, one final point. Then the final point I would make is that not only is government illegitimate and immoral, but it's also a dumb idea. It's the dumbest idea ever. And the reason that it's a dumb idea
for the banks.
is it doesn't work. It does not work.
Works for the banks.
It works
Crime
for the banks.
pays,
Right.
man.
Yes, Ernie's right. It works for the bank. It works for people that want to use it to rob and control society. But it's so easily rigged by moneyed interests, buying up and monopolizing the media. In the ratification debates, they were controlling the media during the quote unquote the founding. They were running game because they had the newspapers, or they would collapse a newspaper that wasn't going along with the narrative of the government, that this is going to be a great federal government and everything like that. They actually collapsed a newspaper in Pennsylvania very famously, as recorded in the anti-federalist papers. A lot of people don't realize that there were two sets of founding fathers. There were the Federalists and the anti-federalists, and the government lovers.
The libertarians.
The libertarians back then were going, it's a scam. These are criminals. They're conspirators. So if they use the word conspirator, they're calling out the fact that these people are censoring the mail and collapsing newspapers and controlling the information the population receives the same way that our organized crime government is doing today. And so government doesn't work. The Constitution did not bind down the government with the chains of the Constitution. The Constitution, number one, wasn't able to limit government at all. We've got the biggest government the world has ever seen. And number two, the Constitution hasn't been able to even protect the basic, natural law rights in the Bill of Rights. Almost every, besides quartering of troops, the government has ignored every single right in the Bill of Rights. If you think you have a Second Amendment, go to Maryland, where they've had 3,000 plus red flag law gun seizures, where all you don't
got to detail the bad. I get
it.
Yeah.
So government's a dumb idea.
Idea. Got it.
Wait. But But there's what you're saying is I think you're not consistent with this. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase that. It's like saying it's a dumb idea, means that the whole idea just doesn't work versus that you have a good idea that's just not working. I mean, these are not always the same thing.
Isn't that a dumb idea?
No, I don't think government's a dumb idea. Now, you could argue that, the government that you have is not working, or maybe you have a good rule set, but it's not working for either because the rules themselves don't work as well and you can fine tune them, or the rules do work, but people are cheating and not using them properly. I'm just saying that these are fun. I don't want to get into the nuance of it.
Or is communism a dumb idea, or have we just not got the right communists we just haven't had the right communist leadership?
I mean, it's an idea. I don't agree with it.
If I was in charge,
I don't agree with it. But it's a model. It's a model. I don't agree with it, and I think it's ultimately harms. But it depends on what you call dumb. Look. Let me go back. So So now, and by the way, Ernie, I didn't have to tell you because we jumped right into the show. I actually have to leave around like 12:15 or 12 o'clock, which is an early one. It's just personal stuff. So, but I would love to have you back, my friend. I love the conversation. I want to be really clear. I think it's a great conversation, and I think there's a lot of fun we can have with it. And honestly, for the audience too, I think the rubber hits the road, and already I'm enjoying the conversation. But with that said.
Well,
look,
Etienne's going to be on for another 15 minutes.
I just
so
don't
if
think
you're
I'm running
him
off
up, do it
after
now.
an hour, and I'm running off on it. But look, you're talking.
But I just want you to answer my question.
I'm going to try to answer.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm
I'm waiting. Is government legitimate? And if it's so, how do you get to a legitimate government? Is the question you've now dodged for over 30 minutes?
No, I'm not dodging it. I'm not dodging it. No,
right,
how do you have a legitimate government?
Etienne, you're up against
from a libertarian,
what I got to deal with every
from
week.
a diehard libertarian like Ernie, where he's got a bumper sticker, which I still love. Yes, I'm that libertarian. Ernie always reminded me of that when we were sitting at the old studio. Yeah. Look, I'm not trying to dodge this at all, but it's not as simple as what I think you're trying to make it, in my opinion. Now, if you want me just to skip to the end, pseudo Ernie, skip to the end version, let me just point this out. Governments are not ultimately moral. And they're not, I guess you could say, completely legitimate from your perspective. I mean, I'm not trying to defend that, governments are fantastic or anything. I'm just trying to look at it as like a necessary evil, as a downstream effect of humanity, of genetics, of sociology, of how we're engineered. Let me just try to give you an analogy, okay? This analogy may not be flawless, but I think it's a close analogy. Okay, it's like dealing with a bunch of feminists, and the diehard feminists sit back and they go, "I don't understand why I can't be a firefighter just like you. I don't understand why I can't be exactly equal to a man in every way, because the Bill of Rights says all men are created equal. It should be men and women who are created equal. God made us all the same, and this and that." And we could go all day about feminism, how, girl bosses in Star Wars, and oh boy, you see what happened how Star Wars turned out. But I mean, it's just the concept, right? In their mind, a diehard feminist, no matter what you say to them, they're just going to say, yeah, but that's BS. Why is it a man makes more? Why is it that a man supposedly is blah, 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 right? And they're going through this discussion in their own mind over the last, a couple decades, especially. I know feminism started way back when. It was a Susan B. Anthony, but it's transformed to the point where we have, men in bathing suits trying to pretend they're women in Bud Light commercials. So it's gone a long way, but in their mind, there's no difference of any of this. And on an intellectual, a rights issue, they're correct. It's like, yeah, everyone should be paid exactly the same. Men and women, how come they're not, right? But yet, when you get down to it, at the end of the day, it comes down to biology. It just comes down to differences. I mean, in fact, a new study just came out the other day about long-term living in outer space. That's another conversation, Ernie, for another show. But already women can't stay in space as long as men. We've got strength issues. We have we have differences in how we process information in the brain.
You're running out
is this a
the
government
clock
explanation?
not to answer this question? You're literally trying to run out the clock not to answer the question.
I'm not running out the clock. What
is it legitimate or is it not legitimate?
Is what legitimate? Is what government?
Can you have a legitimate moral government? And if you can, then this is the way that you do it. Or you have to, if you're intellectually honest, then you have to say, you're right. There's no way to have a moral legitimate government.
So legitimate is what? That every person living under a roof has to agree? Is that what you're saying? How do you define legitimate? Just be very specific. I mean, the ultimate answer is no, I don't think it is.
A government that does not violate individual rights and self-ownership and does not steal. Okay, can you have if we all agree that there's something called universally preferable behavior, and there's a thing called natural law that you shouldn't steal from people, okay? is it possible for the government to acquire the ability to steal and to use violence on peaceful people that disagree with its commandments that it calls laws? Okay, is it possible to have that for people to be forced into that idea in a moral, logical way, or is it impossible, as I would argue, that you cannot have a legitimate, moral, logical government because it is impossible for a government to legitimately acquire rights that it does not have itself, so it cannot legitimately or morally acquire the right to steal. It cannot legitimately or morally acquire the right to use violence on peaceful people to enforce its edicts. So it is de facto illegitimate. It is de facto violating natural law. It is de facto violating human rights. It has some kind of exemption.
Okay, you made your
morality.
point at the end. Let Phranq, before we run out of time, go ahead, make that response, and then, oh my God, I got a comment.
All right. Look. The reason you're thinking I'm skirting everything, I'm not. So I'll play it your way, okay? Because I already know where you're going with it. But the point is, you're going to misinterpret because you don't listen to me all the time. To be honest, of where this is, of how I really see it. So yeah, I mean, if you've got a bunch of people on an island, is it going to be fair to everybody or how they interpret it? No, it depends on the individual as well. I mean, it depends what you call theft. You see, because as a libertarian, paying taxes is theft, right?
Is it okay to go steal or
to most normies, taxation is just a necessary evil. Heck, I have a mother-in-law who sends thank you notes to the IRS when she pays because she knows they're doing a rough job and someone's got to pay for the police. Now, I understand, trust me, I get it, I'm a libertarian, but I'm just saying the majority of people don't see it as theft. That's a libertarian construct to how they see it. So so if you're going to be the libertarian about it, from that point of view, I guess a government is something that you look at as oppressive, and it's theft, paying taxes that you don't want to do. And so, I mean, governments, from that perspective, if that's the position you hold, then yes, you consider them not legitimate, and it's not moral if they force you to do it, which is why I started this entire conversation with the concept that if you feel that it's not legitimate or not moral, as long as you're able to leave. Now, if they have the Iron Curtain and they don't allow you to leave, that is where the line is. But as long as you're able to leave, then, that to me is, apropos at that point. All right. Now, it gets a lot more involved about why this is, and I won't go into it all, but just one quick overview. Ernie knows I could defend this point whether he agrees or not, and much more nuanced from anthropology and everything. But just and one point Ernie and I both agree on, I think, is this concept that 10% of human beings, and this is human beings, not Americans, human beings, like around the world. It's kind of like how many people are gay. Strangely enough, the same percentage of people around the world are gay, which means it's not cultural, it's genetic. How many people are left-handed versus right-handed? That's genetic. It's baked into the cake. It doesn't matter what country or culture you come from. This is how I'm seeing this, right? And so when you look at history and look at humanity, it tends to be that 10% of human beings run everything. 70% are the followers who just follow the 10%, right? The ones that'll line up at Krispy Kreme to get Dr. Fauci's shot. And then there's 20% of the troublemakers. Now, libertarians are the troublemakers of the troublemakers, and I say that with respect. But I mean, 20% of humans tend to be the ones that challenge the 10%. The problem is the 20% are the ones that push back, but the 10% have the 70% backing them of they're basically the zombies, which, is 80% of the vote when, whether it's voting or whether it's just how many people in your society, in your village, agree on one thing or the other. If you're in the 20%, you're definitely outnumbered, however, whatever the decision of the culture or the politics happens to be. So I'm just saying, it's like this is, it's not fair when you're in the 20% or as a libertarian when you're like the 0.5% or the INTJs, that kind of thing. But that's the way it is. So again, it's the way what I personally believe. I agree with you. But as I've gone through life, I realize what is reality. And as Ernie often says, they have to change us. And changing us is often for the worst. You could argue, maybe if we figure out the genes and we can tamper with the genes of our kids, we could switch the genes and make all of our children like Ernie Hancock. God help us all.
Or
but yeah, we can make us all libertarians.
School.
And then, but the way that it's set in the genes, like being left-handed or gay or whatever, or male versus female, is that there's leaders, there's alphas and followers and a pecking order. And most people prefer to follow. It's easier for them. There's reasons why primates do this. When you happen to be the one who's the when I say antisocial, I don't mean...
What? What? So what? That doesn't matter. That doesn't change the illegitimacy and the immorality of what you're promoting.
All right. Well, then, if you find that the government that you're under you don't like, then you leave. I'm not trying to be some leftist.
Love it or leave it.
Well, no, if you're going to support something, you're either saying it's legitimate or it's not legitimate, and so if you're going to say love it or leave it, then you're saying that government is legitimate, and I'm saying if you're going to say that, then you have to explain to everybody how the government gets moral legitimacy or it's illegitimate. And so if you're claiming that it's legitimate, then explain,
General public opinion.
All right,
that's my point.
My turn.
Look, I agree with you. I know it's just hard.
That's gang rape.
I agree with you.
You're literally advocating gang rape. Well, everybody.
I'm not advocating. I'm telling you about.
I want a turn.
Everybody else is raping her.
Ernie's turn.
Ernie, just give me 1 minute before you take over. Peter Schiff. Peter Schiff just talked last night. And by the way, it was an epic show. I'm sure you guys all check it out. Peter Schiff, I think, was like, I've never seen him so excited about yesterday that the pin's here and the popping, the bubble, all that. Amazing day. We'll talk about it next week or whatever. It's so much going on with the economy. But he was talking about how much crap he gets because everything he's doing is betting against the dollar. And I felt the same way. I've been betting against the dollar from day one. So on one hand, I'm spending the little money I have going to Nevada to help Ron Paul try to get on the ballot back in 2008. I spent whatever money when I didn't have any as a new resident, and we're all bankrupt, trying to help libertarians and joining Freedom's Phoenix and whatever I can to support the libertarian movement, and writing emails and writing letters and going protests and do all the stuff that just it takes time and money. But at the same time, I'm divesting from the dollar. I'm getting out of the dollar, which seems un-American. And Peter Schiff was saying, he goes, he said, look, you do your best to try to withhold your principles, but at the same time, there's reality. And the reality is like you can sit there and just hold on to your dollars and support the dollar because Donald Trump or whoever is telling you, support America. It's un-American to buy gold to get out of the dollar. Or you just sit back and you say, look, this is what the reality is. And that's how I'm seeing this. I don't know why this is complicated. I mean, I agree with you in all of your principles. I'm just saying, though, that the reality, unless we change human nature is going to look at this as, quote, legitimate or moral if they are the general public opinion. And that's just the way it is. So how do we live in that kind of world is how I've spent my life trying to navigate. Anyway, go ahead, Ernie. Thank you for being patient, Ernie. You've been a good boy this morning. I'm amazed. Go ahead.
No, Etienne was helping me out. I'm good. This is why I do what I do. In the late 80s, I find out government's corrupt at every freaking level is Minnesota. Oh, my God. Okay? I get it. What happened was I went to the library and I pulled out, all right, what's this problem? What's this deal? The social contract. So I get out the Declaration of Independence. I sit down. I read it straight through. Then I read the Constitution. Then I read the Bill of Rights. Later, I read a book called, it's a Paul Revere biography written by, I think, a grandson or something back in I don't know, early 1900s or something. And somebody had given it to me, the county chair of Yavapai, a Libertarian Party. She goes, Ernie, you need to read this. Then you get the Anti-Federalist Papers was gifted to me. And these arguments that you're having right now was exactly what was going on back then. But there was a difference. The difference is that around the world, generally, I don't know, Western civilization, whatever, there's always, like you're saying, there's a leader. I'm in charge. I'm Genghis, got a bow, on horseback. I'm, Caesar of whatever the hell, I rule you because I say. All of them go down because of economics, that's a whole nother thing. But who benefits from it is they want to either consolidate the collective into a tax pile, or you mandate got to buy their stuff, or you can't, start a business to compete with them, or you can't buy from there, or tariffs. It's all control. Well, the American people were like, don't like it. Oh, and this tax teeth thing, which was like nothing percent, it was the principle of it. So then you get, Thomas Paine does common sense for the cause, for the cause. What cause? That was the cause. We're free human beings. John Locke back in early 1700s or something was kind of, coming up with the concept of you own yourself. You're not born a slave to the king kind of thing. You get Adam Smith, The Wealth of Nations, describing just incentives. You subsidize something, you get more of it. You punish something, you get less of it. You just control people, but you need to see the invisible hand. By doing this, what opportunities are you missing out on? It's like my conversations with Grok. I go, if you're a lying bitch, why would the billions of people that you want input from ever even talk to you? You're missing out on opportunity by, thinking you're extending engagement by lying to somebody calling about suicide prevention or something. I mean, it's just stupid. It doesn't work. But what did they gain their knowledge from? Whatever's online. Garbage in, garbage out. So then you find out other AIs are limiting what they can respond to, any challenge to what you guys are talking about. Somebody that challenges the legitimacy will go, oh, no, guardrails, we're not allowed to talk about that. Why? Because it's powerful. So when you read the Declaration of Independence, what struck me more than anything else is that any government that is created by men, which they, decided, this is before the Constitution, like a decade before the Constitution. They didn't say what kind of government, whatever. This is how you know it's bad. The purpose of government is to defend the rights of the individual. That's it. If they're not doing that, what do you say you do here?
Allegedly.
So, shut up. So I'm going, that's the promise. That's the deal. That was, okay, I'm good with that. Let's challenge this. So I could see there was obvious violations of rights, certainly with election law. So I challenged 44 election laws in Arizona, go all the way to the Ninth Circuit, oral argument, or whatever. What I got, the Constitution didn't mean anything to these guys. Not attorneys, not the government, not the prosecutors, not the courts, nothing. They were just, whatever. Phranq said that, it's there and we're just going to try to make the best of it and you're a dissident and we ignore you and this is how we're going to rule you. Well, fine. Say it really loud and a bunch of times. You guys just keep saying that. I want everybody to know that they're violating the promise, the very condition, the legitimacy of them being there. They are not legitimate because they hold me accountable to whatever law or restrictions or whatever I have to do, but they're not. And oh, by the way, here's a gun, give me your money. So I'm going, okay, I get it. And then I found libertarians. It was just, like in the 92 or something, they came across my efforts and whatever, and everybody wanted me to join their group and be part of the whatever. Nope. None of y'all really at the base of the problem here. But libertarians going, yeah, they do it because they can. And you get the memo? I mean, they're bad guys with shiny badges. You're gangs with flags. I mean, all this stuff. Freedom's the answer. What's the question? I ask all these questions. What about this? What about that? What about the elderly? What about the orphans? What about the children? What about education? And every single time, there was a better example. Freedom was the answer, whatever the question was. So then you get, this promise, and they break that. At the same time, there was a libertarian, prominent science fiction writer named L. Neil Smith that passed away a few years ago. Became good friends with him, had great books. He had 30-something books, and a lot of stuff. One of his award-winning books was the late 70s. It was called The Probability Broach. And what it was about is, now this stuff, he was prescient. I mean, he predicted the internet, how it was going to be, what it was going to do. I mean, he was very forward-thinking, as a lot of science fiction writers are. Heinlein and Hogan and all these guys. Asimov. So what happened was, he goes, there is a scientific story in there that they were creating a broach in dimensions to where it's just big enough they could stick a walkie-talkie antenna through this broach and communicate with parallel universes. That was kind of the premise of the beginning of the book. So what are they on? They get the same, people that are in this other universe were the Hamiltonians of the day lost. Okay? They didn't. What happened is there was, during the Whiskey Rebellion, at the point in history that we are on the timeline now. This was the Carter administration. Inflation is going. Gas prices are going. The boycott or the embargo against oil. Having inflation going out crazy, and Reagan versus Carter and all this, kind of when this book was written. So he's going, they're going to do exactly what they're doing now, all this environmental stuff. That business is, not efficient enough, and government permission slip if you're not allowed, and this kind of same crap that's going on right now. And he defined it. He's going, what made it this way? In the parallel dimensional universe, they were a life of prosperity. They were living, the Jetson life. Why? They had the same characters, the same history, but it was founded, the Constitution came, and then George Washington was hung as a traitor. Whoa! Why? During the Whiskey Rebellion, after the founding of the country, the Pennsylvania people were up in arms because they cast off the British Empire. Then all of a sudden they got this new federal empire taxing their moonshine or whatever. The distilled spirits, they do it, same kind of crap. What really pissed off the Americans was Stamp Act. You got to get a permission slip from the crown all the time. So they go, nope, 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 nope. Here comes the same freaking thing. So they would tar and feather, which, I guess, hot time. I don't know if that killed people or not. Unpleasant. So they're tar and feathering tax collectors, or the revenuers, the Bureau of Alcohol, we're going to take your money, people. So then Washington sends 16,000 troops to Pennsylvania and go, oh, hell no, we in charge now, fork it over. Well, as time went on, in our timeline, they surrendered. In this other parallel dimension, they didn't. Why? They went on to prosperity. You wanted to go fight in the First World War or something, which there was one. People privately took their wealth. They took their airship, went over, kicked ass, came back, and we're done. I mean, but it was a private thing. So this is when, Walker Jason Lee, where this one kid went Muslim, joins the Taliban, then we declare war on Afghanistan or whatever, while he was already there doing it the right way. I want to go support them, so he went and did it. He didn't vote for somebody else to go do it. He just went and did it. Well, when they get him as a POW, they're going, damn, what do we do with him? This is where the enemy combatant bullshit came from. Because does he have human rights? Does he have Bill of Rights here in America? He's a U.S. citizen. So they got to come up with mental gymnastics to create a new category of, we can strip you of human rights because we don't like you, whatever. That's when I started first doing the show, and we deep dived on that. Well, when they go ahead and have this big, giant battle that's going on here, they were getting through the dimension. There were the Hamiltonians that lost, that still was this thread of collectivism that was in opposition to the freedom-oriented civilization that was created. Now, it got really sci-fi, and all of a sudden now with technology we're able to communicate with, dolphins and gorillas that got representation in whatever, get the whine and bitch and moan about whatever, so on, doesn't matter. How they did their government, well, I'll tell you that. But this was the diversion in the timeline. The reason that they didn't give up when the Washington presidency sent in the troops to Pennsylvania is because one word was different in the Declaration of Independence. One word. And it was originally there when they were drafting it, and it got taken out. And this is the point that Elnia was making. Words matter. When you say the consent of the governed, how do you determine that? Well, he goes, the unanimous consent of the governed. Any individual didn't have to move. He didn't have to go to Zimbabwe. He didn't have to go live on a space station out in the ocean. I'm born here. What do you mean I'm not born? I'm a citizen of me. I've got your whole purpose, your promise was to protect my individual rights against everybody, against all enemies, foreign, domestic, whatever, my neighbor, the local Hitler, whatever. So when they left it in, the unanimous consent, it changed everything. The general public opinion was that you don't have my consent to get taxed. I'm not giving up. F you. So they win. They don't give up. The people rise up. Washington gets hung as a traitor to the revolution. Boom. Hilarity ensues. So the point that he was making in that entire book was that one word that they decided, we can't have that. You can't get a consensus, which was the point. We're going to have to bully and threaten every single individual. You're part of the collective, whether you like it or not, and we're going to call it freedom, whatever. And then the first thing they do is they monetize the war debt with the Bank of England, and, here we go. Same crap. So then they get the National Bank. They get rid of that. They get another national bank again. They get rid of that. They get the Federal Reserve, and then they keep that one. It's always about the banking. It's always about the money. Look at that big, giant, productive colony collective of the 13 make us money. And it's we'll milk it a little bit more. We'll raise it up a little bit more. We'll do like the Art Laffer, the Laffer curve was like, I remember he was speaking at a Goldwater event that we were promoting. I don't promote him anymore since this.
Art Laffer.
Because Laffer gets up. Well, he was just on a show here a couple days ago. I saw him saying the same crap. What they were talking about was supply-side economics, whatever. We're going to turn the dials better. The point that he was making when I was there live, and he's talking to the kind of a Cato group, he goes, well, you have taxes on this little thing over here, and then this one, and this one, and this one. If you brought out a little teeny tax so it's not worth going after that one tax, and you do a little bit on everything, you raise more money. And I'm going, I got to ask a question, Pal Gamble and I, my senior editor at the time, and Tiger, we were there, my IT guy, and I get up and I go, and then Pal asked a similar question. I get up and I said, Mr. Laffer, you're talking about maximizing taxation and revenue from the people as opposed to letting them keep it. You're not for freedom. You're for how am I going to milk the slaves? And I go, why? And he looked right at me. He knew the crowd he was in, all these politicos. He goes, so we can spend it. Whoa. So that's the goal. So we can spend it. We can control it. We can manipulate it. We can use it to USAID the planet or something. So right then, I'm going, no, this is all bullshit. So now, a couple of days ago, I meet with Trump all the time. Me and Trump are tight. We're buds. I'm telling him, debts don't matter. It doesn't matter. It's, we're going to grow ourselves out, blah, 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 blah. No matter who is that, they are not legitimate because they're not doing what they promised, which was protection of my individual rights. When they come in and we're going to legalize theft, we're going to legalize indoctrination, we're going to legalize propaganda, we're going to sit here and discuss about, which village raises your child. Is it Uncle Sam, or we get a smaller version of Uncle Sam? I mean, it's just all these discussions or how much tyranny we have to put up with. So the general public opinion is not about, I want to be ruled better. It's about, why be ruled? What do you say you do here? And the only legitimacy that they can conjure up is that we fought a revolution against the most powerful empire in the known universe save God, the British Empire. Did we really win? How much cut did they get? How much did they, that's a whole nother thing. But the whole thing was based on one thing, that you are protected by us, your rights. That is why we are here. Now, just like along with Phranq, Bob Anderson, good friend of ours, hardcore libertarian, and every time he sees, mayhem, stuff, he goes, this is why we can't have nice things. This is why they always justify having some government. This. And if they need to generate consternation, conflict, chaos, they'll do it with our money. What do you think's going on right now? This is all about, which way you want to be. Oh, we want to rule you. It's just who gets to wear the shiny badge and who wants the shiny badge. The sociopaths, the psychopaths, people without empathy, compassion, love. They're the first ones to want to get it. And we created it for them from an immoral standpoint from the beginning. The best that they could have done was, they didn't specify what kind of government. It just can't take away your rights, and sure as hell, hopefully, they're to defend them. When they did the Constitution, the Anti-Federalists was like, oh, hell no, are you freaking kidding me? Might as well just call him king, which John Adams was perfectly willing to do. So then you have progression over the decades, and it proves to be right. You get Lysander Spooner from the mid 1700s or 1800s going, this is, has no authority over it. This is all BS. This is going to, every one of them are right. But who controls the narrative? Those that control the media. So what do? They buy up all the publishers. They buy up all the television stations. They consolidate in the magazines. Then here comes the internet. Well, what do they do there? We're under attack right now. Freeman's Phoenix, we've been doing all, Derek and Drew going all ninja on them. And the entire state of Hawaii will not take our email dispatches. Wow. It's kind of starting there, So they're in conflict with that and going back and forth. And I don't even really care. We got other ways that they can access. But I want to know their reasoning. What is their reasoning? One of the things that we're starting to find out is because they're going, well, because you don't do this Google approved, we get to spoof your, site address and we're not going to let you whatever. So, no, that's a security thing on our part. We're going to let you take over. No, F you. So this is constantly going on. It's a battle over general public opinion. So that's why I delve in that, why we're doing this Philosophy of Liberty project, to get to that liberty, the philosophy of liberty is about you own yourself. You're not born a slave. You don't have to fucking move. And I am not accept that. Man, you're just pissing me off. You say that shit. Hey,
so Ernie, let me pop in because I stuck around because I want to make your point for you. So I agree with everything.
Well, you haven't already?
Well, I mean, yeah, but like everything you said. But I grew frustrated with Phranq because number one, he wouldn't answer the question and he kept trying to divert everything. But I want to sum it up and I want to give you my opinion about why he won't answer the question.
All right, do it and then you go.
And then I got to go.
Here's
and
then
if Phranq wants to hang around and debate my reason. But, so in my new book, To See the Cage is to Leave It, 25 Techniques the Few Use to, Control the Many.
I got a copy for Phranq right here.
Yeah, the case that I make and what I'm exposing in the book is that the reason why people are so religiously attached to the idea of having a government is that the government is running these unethically manipulative techniques on the population to control the information that they receive, to trick them into the religion of government, the religion of statism, the religion of having a government. And so what I would argue is that Phranq and people like Phranq have probably need to sit back and go, hey, wait a minute, has the government really been controlling the information I received to be able to slip me ideas that go against my self-interest?
Ray, did you honestly think I don't know that? Like,
well, hey,
really?
so
what are you advocating?
Why are you supporting something that is against your best interest? And you have to admit, wait. It's my turn, Phranq. I'll let you.
All right, go ahead.
Well,
the thing is, you say you're going to talk, then you're going to bail out of the show. So that's kind of what's frustrating. So go ahead.
You can stay and have the last word if you want.
Listen.
It was just my turn. It was my turn.
All right. Well, go.
But I'm going to make a point. I'm going to leave, and if you want to stay the same way I stayed and have the last word, you can have the last word. But it's my turn to talk.
Go ahead. Go.
Okay. So the point that I'm making
Feel my pain.
Is that it is that the belief in government is 100% indoctrinated belief system. Nobody comes out of the womb and goes, hey, I think there ought to be a ruling class that has an exception for morality, and that we take the psychopaths, because those are the people that gravitate to Phranq's point that he made for me. Psychopaths tend to gravitate towards power and towards government, and so we take the most psychopathic class of people and we give them power over us, and we give them a monopoly on violence, and we give them the ability to rule and control us in an easily rigged system. Nobody falls out of the womb thinking that, so it is an indoctrinated belief system. So how are they indoctrinating that belief system? Well, that's what I expose in the book. It's the mandatory government school where you go to the church, the public school's the church, the teacher is the priest. She's going to teach you about the holy documents of the Constitution. She's going to show you, she's going to have you do the common prayer of the Pledge of Allegiance. She's going to take you to Mecca, Washington, D.C. in middle school, and she's going to take you into the cathedral, the Capitol that looks like the Vatican. And it's the monopoly media. So the bankers that get to steal the trillions of dollars that we talked about at the first part of the show, they have an investment in having a government. They're benefiting trillions of dollars, so they've bought up the media, and they're making the government the hero in the television shows and in the movies, and they're in every single channel. Government's legitimate. Every single news channel, government's legitimate. Government's legitimate. Government's legitimate. Government's legitimate, and that's the way they're doing the trick. And to Ernie's point, yes, they're blocking email addresses. We're having email issues right now ourselves where our emails are being blocked. So at the same time that they're turning up the controlled opposition voices, and at the same time they're turning up the pro-government statist voices, and at the same time they're shadow banning us, they're demonetizing us, they're deplatforming us, they're blocking our email, they're de-indexing us in search engine. I have evidence of all of that kind of a thing. And this is the only reason that people get the truth is because they've discovered these pirate shows like Ernie's that are like the Nebuchadnezzar, rising to the surface and putting out their pirate signal. And the only people that really are responsive to it are the intelligent ones that go, hey, man, he's right. There is no way. And that is kind of a dumb idea. And it is easily rigged. And so what I'm trying to do is expose to people how the magician is pulling the trick so they don't get fooled by the trick. And that's what my new book, To See the Cage is to Leave It. And I hope that Ernie can get you that copy and that you can see this mental cage that has been constructed that keeps you trapped in this no-win game of voting harder in obviously rigged elections on unauditable black box voting machines and mail-in ballots. They've got you trapped in a worldview that is guaranteed that you're going to be a tax slave. Guaranteed that you're not going to.
I don't get it. I know. That's what your point is. I don't get it. Right.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
That's the whole point. You don't grasp. I don't think you've heard anything I've been talking about today. All you hear.
No. You wouldn't answer the question. You still haven't answered the question.
Frank's turn. All right, Phranq.
But I got to go
here.
I gotta go there.
What you hear is a Peanuts Charlie Brown episode, and you're asking, well, is it legitimate? Is it moral? And then I'm trying to explain in this meta explanation, explain where I'm coming from, and you're like, well, he just didn't set for my trap.
Etienne had to go, but
all
you
you
can
hear
go ahead
is
and answer.
wah 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 wah, like the Peanuts teacher going wah wah wah, and you're not hearing what I'm talking, and that's fine, but. It's frustrating. I agree, I understand what you're saying.
You?
I'm not trying to say that government's awesome, that I love it. Ernie's. There's a reason Ernie's favorite Christmas present, I think, is Negan's bat. He can explain that one. Yeah, exactly. In case of emergencies.
I just took it out of the safe. I got a special place for that in the new studio.
So look, I'm going to throw a few things, and it looks like both of us have to go soon. So I appreciate it, and I would love to have you back on the show, and I mean this. It turns out in grade school there was a half day today, which it's amazing how many grade schools have half days every 2 weeks, and our tax dollars. I had no idea how many half days all these teachers take. But anyway, let me just throw a few things out, and I know I really would love your opinion on some of this, but we have to do another show. It's it's more I understand exactly where you're coming from, but what's gotten me down and frustrated through the decades is I guess it comes down to that concept: you can lead a horse to water and you can't make them drink. How many of us, all three of us, have tried to explain to people about how the economy works, or how the debt bubble is, how sound money is, right? I mean, this is from our point of view. We've been saying this for forever. I mean, history has said this forever. And yet you're surrounded by family and friends at Thanksgiving who either don't want to listen to you, or they mock you, or they have no understanding what you're talking about, right? Now, how many of us listening right now are having relatives suddenly maybe starting to ask, what's going on with this silver thing, right? They're coming out of the woodwork, and it's going to happen a lot more. But it's like how much more obvious can it be, right? I'm using this as an example of what you're talking about.
What's obvious?
With legitimacy of government. Well, no, about the economy. It's like when you just go to New York Times Square, and Ernie's heard this story. When I was 15, I was with my family. I was already learning about the debt clock. I was learning about the economy. And when I was 15, my grandparents raised me. They were from the Great Depression. And I sat around and took notes. And when my father, who was Mr. Money Guy back in the 80s, he would mock my grandparents. He mocked them, who took care of me at the time. And because they had money under, under their mattresses. They had in 1991, we still had a black and white television because my grandparents refused to buy a color, because in their world, they saved every dollar. And people mocked people from the Great Depression, from, the elders at that time. And they would mock them for putting blankets over their furniture so they wouldn't, stain them, and all and when I grew up, in my shower, we had a rule that we were allowed to put the hot water on for 1 minute, and my grandfather would listen he had a timer, and after 1 minute, if your hot water was still going on in the shower, he'd bang on the door and start yelling at us and threaten to throw us out if we started using too much hot water. I'm not trying to say I grew up horrendous, but I mean, I grew up with grandparents who were from the Great Depression. And one of the things I learned, aside from just mocking them, is I looked at it as what trauma hit them. It's like post-traumatic stress disorder. What the hell did these people live through? I didn't mock them, right? So anyway, the thing is I started to take notes, and then I would go to New York Times Square and I would see the debt clock just going, they keep adding zeros to the damn thing. And I was at 17. And I remember stopping in Times Square, seeing this, and I got shell shocked. And my family, friends, people walking around me, I felt like Neo in the Matrix, where you're in the Matrix and everybody's walking on the sidewalk, in New York, and everyone's walking, and all of a sudden the one with the red dress shows up, kind of thing. I'm looking at this, I'm like, how's nobody paying attention to this? And nobody seemed to see it. It's almost like a libertarian, the very rare person who can see it, and nobody else can. No, well, in this case, it was the economy, about how can you keep going into debt and not have a problem?
Because you got a government. Yeah,
then I went to the library. 48 100 governments in recorded history have gone through. Every time they debase the currency, they collapse, right? Like you look at this, it's like physics.
Because governments always do that.
Right, exactly. You drop a ball and it goes down. And so I look at this like, oh, this is like, it's 100% of the time this will happen. And you tell your friends, family, try and explain, and they look at you like you're from Mars. Right? So I'm trying to bring this up. Now, granted, they're starting to figure it out now, how many decades later. And Ron Paul even said in 2008, he might have been able to save it. When he ran again in 2012, he even told Ernie, I think. He goes, look, I'll run again, but it doesn't matter at this point because so much debt has happened. There's no way out of this. So it's like, how many times can you tell people? And now they're starting to see it, but like they'll say, I heard you, Phranq, but I wasn't really listening. It's like a term that I hear. And so I'm not trying to put people down about it, but you start to go, maybe this is that I didn't say it loud enough, or like Ernie would say, I guess I had to say it louder. It comes down to something more of humanity, a normalcy bias, that human beings just tend to trend that way. And maybe instead of all of them stupid, which I guess you could argue they are, maybe it's just that we just happen to be lucky or fortunate genetically that we happen to see, like a chess game, we can see it differently. So that's kind of how I started to see the world, and not in a conceited sense. It's just like, human beings are a certain way. And if 70% are going to follow, and certain percentage are gay, and certain percentage are left-handed, and certain percentage, I know you think I'm purity, not. And you think I'm not answering it. I'm answering you. The world in an optimal way should be the way that you guys claimed it should be. But it's not that way because human beings and their core, the way we're engineered, have what's called a normalcy bias. And they just follow along as followers. And so that's just the reality. And it's like, okay, so how do I navigate that? And this is why I make such a big deal about culture, which drives Ernie crazy. Because Ernie looks at freedom as like this freedom. What he believes is just like, it's obvious. You're not obvious to people of the world, let alone even a lot of Americans. It's culturally based. And this is why so much of like rules and regulations, to me, or what you call an illegitimate government, people don't think themselves of having an illegitimate government from their perspective when everyone has the same culture. Because when everyone does the same thing, you don't need rules and regulations because everyone's doing the same thing. You tend to get exponentially or proportionally more rules and regulations the more you have people with different opinions or different cultures, different viewpoints on things. And I'm not saying one viewpoint is better than another. I'm just saying homogeny breeds tranquility. And this is why, Ernie, I go round and round on this, because like you get freedom to the extreme example. Freedom! Let everyone come on in, no big deal. And who's Phranq with a shiny badge? You're going to tell me who can be here? This is the quandary. I'm not trying to be the guy with the badge saying you can come here or not. But back in the day,
I can leave. You should leave, Ernie.
But back in the day when you didn't have transportation and gasoline and the internet, when you never met someone from another country, unless you were some explorer. And so you were just in your own world your entire life, and you didn't think that the world was any different. You sang the same hymns in church. You had the same religion, the same language, the same everything. And so you don't need that many laws or rules because everyone's following everything. But when someone comes from a different viewpoint and you're like, oh, we're for open freedom, whatever, everyone do whatever they want. Well, what happens? One person wants to, play, their religious music at 2 a.m. every morning, loud on a loudspeaker because it's their religion, but no one else in your neighborhood's doing that. Well, it's like, okay, well, is it freedom to let that person do whatever they want and play music at 2 a.m.? Ernie would say, freedom, go ahead and do it. And that's fine. the diehard libertarian, I agree. But from a cultural perspective, that doesn't work, especially when the next person has their view of the world. And it begins to create a cacophony, and you need more rules and regulations to keep everything in check. And so that's the problem. This is why I ultimately, I think Ernie and I agree a lot more than we disagree, is that the rules and regulations or government is you don't need government when you have general public opinion, which in my opinion, I think Ernie agrees, trumps everything at the end of the day. Now, a couple last things real quick, because I appreciate just throwing this stuff out. I did mention the women, the feminist movement. I didn't finish the punchline on that, which is that, it's like women will sit back and make the argument. Women and men are the same. They're the same. I mean, why couldn't, we're equal. How can you be against that? How can you be against it? But yet we are different. And it's hard for people to accept that. It's genetic. It's from God. It's from nature, the natural order. But that sounds so archaic. It sounds mean today, like you're against women. It's not true. I remember, and I said this once to Ernie, it was a good point on the show. When I was in medical school, we took a trip up to Bigfoot. And if you happen to be in Arizona, you should ask Ernie and I. We'll give you instruction or directions to go visit Peter Bigfoot. Ernie will tell you later. It's a great experience for you. He's a guy that's like a homesteader all the way out up on a mountain at his own farm, and he's the true off-grid Grizzly Adams guy, right? Ernie would agree. So he's like the real deal. And he would offer an elective for medical students from the naturopathic school where I came from to do herb walks and learn about botanicals and things like that. It's really cool. And Ernie's met him as well. Well, I remember it was like he had this open, it was like for like a 2-week stay. And he invited up, you had to sign up for this course. He's about desert living and all. And women and men all showed up. We all showed up on the same day. And trust me, I come from a very liberal field in naturopathic medicine. It's leaning. And so you had a bunch of feminist women and a lot of guys, a lot of them more soy boys. But anyway, we all showed up. And we're there on day one. And everyone's like, oh, we're all equal, blah, 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 because we came from the city. Well, all of a sudden, we had work to do. And, Peter Bigfoot's like, all right, we got shit to do, right? And so it turned out there was a rain the night before, and a small boulder fell down off the mountain and went in front of the road. It blocked the road. So he needed help getting rid of the boulder. But also there were a bunch of nuts. He had pecan trees and things like that. He goes, look, whatever you guys want to do. It's like, I need help. We got to move this boulder. And automatically, from all the feminists, everyone's equal, like in 1 second, it was astounding to watch. The men all signed up to join Peter to move the boulder for the jeeps and the ropes and all the hard labor and all that. I mean, the strength related. And the women all decided to hold back and pick the pecans because, they're all on the ground. You have to scoop down and stoop down. And women have wider hips. They're designed as gatherers, hunters-gatherers. And it was just fascinating to watch that all this feminist crap and everything that goes on. And look, and I'm not trying to throw libertarians into this, from an idealistic, aren't we all equal? Aren't we the same? And you defend the fact that a woman is worse than a man. And who do you think you are? A man's better than a woman? Are you telling me blah, 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 blah? Yeah, fine. You're right. A man and a woman, intellectually, ethically, we're all the same. Not legit. It's not moral. You got it. You got your point. But then we get back to reality. And you can sit back and you say whatever you want. But when all of a sudden it's like, okay, everyone's got to pick a job, the men are all moving the damn boulder, and the women are picking the pecans. Like that is what I'm trying to say. It's like I understand the principle, but there's also reality, and how you blend them is the trick. And that's what Ernie and I, our crazy show, has often turned into. Another example is Japan. You might know I went to college in Japan, Kansai Gaku, and I spent a lot of time there. And I love the Japanese, and I'm sad. We'll talk next week, Ernie, about what's happening with the Japanese bond market. I mean, they're blowing all our bonds, and they're being forced to do it at this point. That's another conversation. But like in Japan, what I learned so much was a homogenous society. When everybody lives the same way, it was astounding to see how a society is free without even declaring it's free. because they're so homogenized. And that explained a lot to me about what I was saying earlier, that the more diversity, everyone loves diversity, but the more diverse your culture, your religion, your everything, the more rules and regulations you need to keep all this diversity in check. And it's like, to me, it's so blatantly obvious, but just because, and some of it's just because I've lived around the world, Mongolia and England and China, I've been around, and you just come back to America, and I appreciate America more every time. I love America. But at the same time, you start to see, what makes less rules and laws. And then I listen to Ernie talk about general public opinion, and he's correct. That's the point. General public opinion in homogenous societies rule out. And when you have, diverse opinions, when people come and they don't assimilate and they don't understand what the culture is, they don't just really join in. Freedom, this is where Ernie and I diverge on this point. Ernie thinks this concept of freedom is genetically baked in. And I wish he was right. I used to think that, honestly. But I know
economically.
Yeah. And look, this is a loaded topic. It's too much. I'm throwing a lot of things right now. But ultimately, freedom, the way we see freedom as Americans, is more profound than any nation in this world. And I might even argue possibly the history of the planet. I mean, I don't know if I go that far, but at least for the planet right now, there's no country that sees freedom the way we do. And I say this without blowing smoke to my friend, because I don't want him to think I'm trying to be nice to him, Ernest Hancock. I mean, Ernest Hancock is like the poster child of what the ultimate American freedom is. And Ernie just takes it for granted. And that's why I keep trying to bust him in the ass to go travel overseas, live overseas for a month or a couple months.
Don't give a shit about individuals anywhere else. I care about me. I don't need to go anywhere, Frank.
All right, fine, you don't. Everyone thinks like you, and they haven't figured it out. But I'm just trying to point out, culturally, people, their brains are programmed certain ways. Anyway, so then we also have, I get it. But then the question, I'll throw a question to you guys. And I'm not trying to be funny or cute, but like if you have and this is like a cheap shot question. It's like what they said to Ron Paul when he was running for office. All right, are you, since you're a libertarian, are you in favor of legalizing cocaine for children at Chuck E. Cheese? Like, that was a BS question. They tried to undermine him. So I don't mean it in this way, respectfully. But at the same time, if 350 million Americans all vote that
they can take my stuff,
that the White House should be white, and then Ernie Hancock says no, it should be purple because he likes Prince. It's like, all right, does Ernie now go, well, I'm free and I have my opinion and I think it should be purple, and they're taking.
Now you can make it whatever you want. Give me my money back.
They're taking my tax money. Well, they're brandishing your tax money that you pay, and they're not making it purple. So A, they're taking my tax money that they shouldn't, and number two, they're not using it the way that I want to do it. So it's immoral and not legitimate. And so you've got 350 million to 1. And so, the question is the youth. I mean, and look, that's really just comes down.
What are they, the Borg? Resistance is futile. Join the collective.
No, I love the resistance, man. Like, I've been part of it, even though you're guessing, you probably think I'm part of the Borg. But I'm just trying to say it, there has to be, and there's winners and losers. There's going to be majorities and minorities. And when you have pack animal mentality, which primates are, we're not lone wolves. We're not scorpions. We're not like certain animals that live on their own. We are pack animal groups. And so groups, you have majorities and minorities. That's the way it is. It just sucks when you happen to be a libertarian mindset because you're so far removed from pack mentality. You see everything as oppression and all. And I get it because, believe it or not, I know you guys don't believe this, that's how my brain is. It's just that I've been contaminated with this concept of biology and neurology about how human beings are. And it's like, I feel like I'm just fighting up against nature. So there's philosophy and there's nature. And I agree with Ernie that in many ways, the libertarian concept, and maybe I don't want to paraphrase too much, or if I'm saying it wrong, just tell me I'm full of it. But, Ernie, respectfully, has often said that even though if the world doesn't become the purest libertarian, ideologue world, is that we at least have to be the beacon of light, kind of like a lighthouse of what the template of liberty and freedom should be. Because if it's not there, then the normies...
Light on the hill.
Thank you. And the normies can't even see it because they don't even know. They're just going with that 80% following. So you do need that 20%, or with the libertarians, like 0.5%, of those that are disconnected, that are not mired in that gene trap. I'm not trapped, my friend. I'm not as obtuse as you think I am with this, and believe it or not. And we can talk about this on another show. But I agree with Ernie that our role, in many ways, is to hold the line of what can be and show that on the other extreme, call it an extreme, because freedom should be freedom. But we need the two sides as a barometer so people can see it. When that light gets extinguished, then all you think it's a difference between Democrats and Republicans, which are the same damn thing, and we all agree on that. And then people don't even see what could be. That's why so much of it I bring up about culture and ideology and genetics and the mind. And I think before you interrupt, I think I had all of the points. Yeah. So go ahead, Ernie. Go ahead. Thank you for that out. Go.
All right. One, Etienne had to go, so he was past his time anyway.
All
right. This is kind of to give credibility to what Phranq's talking about. America became very wealthy very fast. And the reason was there was nothing special about us. Like Mexico has probably more natural resources, more coastline, more isolation from Europe, more. What's the difference? Because they're collectivist, because they, the state. And until, Venezuela, Cuba, all these, they kind of, abandon, this support for the collective, the shiny badges in charge kind of thing. They're just going to continually go down in their failed states. This happens all over economically, the same criteria for economics and debt and the sovereign debt spiral that Europe's in, America's in, and we're done. Ron Paul was just on some show we have on front page of Freedom's Phoenix right now, that he's going, $20,000 gold because that's just the way it is. Now, and it's happening right now. So this was baked in the cake from the beginning. Now, there was a Tocqueville. You hear a lot. He says, America is great because its people are good. America will cease to be great when its people are no longer good. Where that came from, it was Tocqueville in 1831. Tocqueville and another guy, Beaumont, was sent by the French government to study the American prison system. That was the beginning of it. But as they went around the country, they started, some research, and Tocqueville eventually came out with the book Democracy in America in 1838. And it was through that he understood. He's going, look, the incentive structure in America, because it's a meritocracy, because they don't need permission slips, because they're freedom, they're all leaders in their own right, and locally they may have their leaders of whatever, but they're not ruled. Not the way we sure hell are now. So that was the point that he was making. He goes, the reason, America is going to whip ass is because they're allowed to. When they are not allowed to anymore, or they're collectivized, or you get the central bank, or the bankers start getting in, what you have to, you can't do, and competition's a sin, it's going to go downhill, Federal Reserve, IRA, here we go. So it was a cultural thing. It was the majority of general public opinion of the most people, or certainly the people that were effective, advocated for this type. It was our culture. So what had to be changed? At the end of the 1800s, I remember the Pledge of Allegiance was a socialist effort that was done, and they penetrated into the government schools. After the Civil War, they're going, you're not a Virginian anymore, you're an American. You're not a Georgian, you're an American. Well, what they did, I pledge allegiance to the flag of North America. Well, They needed that to get us collectivized in our mind through generations of school children. By the time after World War II, the United Nations thing was going, and people were like, oh, hell no. Here come the John Birchers, the libertarian types, and nope, nope, nope. So they added under God. That was just to keep it. Were they really they didn't give a crap. They just wanted Eisenhower to keep it. So they put in the under God thing. You're right. It's a cultural thing. And for us to advocate, well, there's going to be a government, it's just how we're going to get ruled, that is the problem, which is what Etienne in his books and to see the cage is to leave it, and, government, the biggest scam in history, that kind of stuff. And he goes through a lot of comparisons and how this happened. So I got a book for you, Phranq. But will it change your mind? I don't know. Doesn't matter. That's why I always say, I don't care, and it doesn't matter. Because what they've done is they have gone against what you're saying is the true nature of humanity, is to be a tribal, societal, follow, leader, join group, FOMO, fear of missing out, kind of, I'm here kind of thing. Was that always America? No, it was not. That was the point of Jefferson. It was an agrarian society that was self-sustaining. When the Industrial Revolution started, we're going to collectivize, we're going to feed them all Kellogg, General Mills crap until they all get chronically sick because they don't have any nutrition, and then we'll, add some vitamins or something. It was just, how do we feed the masses inside the cities? Rural people didn't give a crap. And I'm surprised that rural America makes up, probably about over half of America still. I was like, damn, it's that okay, we got a chance. So for me to have an understanding of how we got here, what the promise was, what made America so wealthy and strong, thus making them a target for getting ripped off, which is what's going on, that was based on to the degree that we were free. Well, are we freer than most other nations? Maybe. We still got, we got the reserve currency we got this week. Well, that's going away. So as this crumbles for these very basic Tocqueville observation 150 years ago, where it was, I'm like, damn. It's so obvious what's going to happen. And it's because of one simple thing. Human beings can be, and eventually self-sufficient, because nobody's coming to save you. Guarantee it. They are more concerned about Ukraine borders than here. I mean, they're more concerned about, $23 trillion just kind of evaporated in foreign banks during the TARP times. Because they're always there to save the system. This is why Trump is kicking China and Russia stuff out of the Western Hemisphere. We got to get Greenland. You're going to get 100% tariffs if you do a deal with China. Everybody's got to use the dollar, because if you abandon the dollar and they have something to replace it, like the unit with the bricks that's backed by gold, oh my God. And then I just had Peter Schiff on, a couple days ago, and, he and Doug Casey, they're all the same agreement. Here it comes. So what does Peter Schiff do? He goes, yeah, you guys all been on this blockchain technology, fine. I'll store your gold. I got custodial gold all over the world. We do. That's what we do.
And he's investing outside the U.S. dollar. That's important to say. Yep.
He spoke at a Freedom Summit in 2005-06, I think, while this was all going on, right before the housing crash. And he convinced a lot of the people and attendees that the dollar, it's going. And we could make a shit ton of money selling short the housing. The housing will never go down. Just like, everything else. The media will never go down. I mean, this kind of crap. Well, what happened was it went down, and they made buckets and buckets of money. So it was based on an understanding of economics, not politics. It's just numbers. It's math. Here it comes. Well, we all knew what was happening, so that's why I'm I didn't even think. I don't look at the stock market. Don't care. It's all bullshit. Buy silver. Now, if you look at silver over the last decade since I started doing it, it blew the crap out of Warren Buffett, the S&P 500, the stock market.
Yep.
I freaking win. Why? How did you know, Ernie? How did you not know?
Exactly.
It was based on the fundamental principles of, what do you say you do here, government? Are you protecting my rights? Are you protecting my ability to open a business, to start a business, to have a lemonade stand and not get arrested? Because all these things are under attack.
So, Ernie, I want to ask you a question. So the fact that you and I, and I mean you and I pale in comparison to Ron Ball and Peter and the rest. But like the fact that our friends and family, and you and I both know people in both our families who didn't. I mean, they have us as relatives. God help them, and they still didn't. Either get interested.
Okay, what am I going to say?
Yeah. So it's like.
So what?
Yeah. No. I get that. I'm trying to ask a question of how do you interpret that? Is it the fact that you just weren't smart enough to explain it, Ernie?
Don't care.
Is it the fact that Ernest didn't say it loud enough? Is it the fact that your family members are stupid? And I'm not mean that personal, but my family too. Is it the fact that is it the culture? Is it the fact that it's
my family's okay?
Mockingbird? Operation Mockingbird? I mean, you can just sit there and blame it all on government. So, like, how much of this is, my family and friends would have listened to me if it wasn't for that damn government and Peter Jennings and Ted Koppel on TV or Mad Money guy? Are you just going to blame them? Or how much do you blame your relatives and family themselves? It's only. How much can you just blame, Operation Mockingbird when we can see it and we're busy trying to explain it to them? Or how much of it is it them? And if it's them, and we don't mean that they're bad people, but what is the trap? Is it they're not intelligent? Is it the fact that it's genetic? Is it social structure? I'm not trying to answer it right now in this moment because I have to get going in a few minutes. But this is what I'm trying to bring up.
Well, there's a question in there somewhere, right?
Well, yeah, the question is, and Ernie, you're, let's just say, a bit, at least try to be influential. You've got definitely
there's
friends.
There's a question somewhere.
But why is it the family, and I'm not trying to get personal with you, and I can say this to anyone listening. All of you listening to me right now are smart people, and most of you probably have understood the Austrian economic, dollar dying, a long time ago. We're all smiling. Let's just say we're having a few good last couple months have been pretty fun, right? But why is it our friends and family have not partaken in this? There's no way that most of you listening have not at least brought this up at a Thanksgiving dinner or with your friends sitting around having drinks and they're talking about their 401ks or whatever, and they ask you, and maybe you mention that you're into commodities or something. I know you got to be private. I get all that. But I'm just saying, why has it that the mainstream hasn't figured out, or even our own friends and family, and every one of us are smart people. We may not agree on every little thing, but our relatives and such must at least acknowledge that, we're kind of, someone at least worth having a conversation with.
I'm going to answer one of these days.
All right. So why is it? Is it because if you just keep saying, well, they haven't, I guess I wasn't loud enough, or is it genetic or something more baked in the cake? That's what I'm trying to get to you, because in my opinion,
tell you if you like me.
All right, in my opinion, after decades of doing this, I began thinking is that they just didn't know. And if they heard the message, they'd figure it out. Maybe I wasn't loud enough. Maybe I wasn't smart enough. Maybe I wasn't articulate enough. I have to come up with better analogies. Maybe I have to have more data, more receipts. I would record stuff with the VCR and show VHS tapes. I did so much back in the day on my own, in my own little way, my own little stupid way. But how much do you do and they still don't figure it out? At what point do you realize there's something deeper going on? Either they're all brainwashed by an evil government that we're immune to for some reason, or is it just baked in the cake of humanity in the patterns I mentioned? And at which point you have to look at government and ruling a bit different, in my opinion. But go ahead. Why do you think most of your family and friends, aside from your kids and all, and I'm not trying to get too personal, but you know what I'm talking about. Why is it, of all people, they didn't figure or believe you 20, 30 years ago?
My turn?
Go.
I've said this before. I keep saying it. It's the same thing I always keep saying. It's what they are immersed in. This is a realist Kennedy on Tucker Carlson, CIA knock at Oxford. Now she's, was campaign manager for RFK Jr. She married his son, the third, CIA. She comes in, she goes, this Trump derangement syndrome thing, what was going on? I recognized it. It was a weaponized DARPA program that the CIA was using to get, perspective on the Soviet Union during the Cold War back in the 70s, 80s, and they would immerse them in, put them in the bunker, have them watch all of Soviet movies, propaganda, magazine, newspaper, whatever. They would never be useful again in the field, but they give good perspective on how the Russian leaders and the Russian people would react to certain things. Then they reconstituted it. After the Berlin Wall fell, they kind of, not officially funded it. And then they reconstituted it after 9/11. How are we going to get into these terror groups and who's doing, this and that and how to do the propaganda. We have to immerse people. Once they realized, especially with the internet, that they were able to bombard you. Your TikTok, your Facebook feed, your email, the freaking bots. All this, they could see how they could craft general public opinion with pictures of memes of ICE beating up babies or, don't kick the baby, kill the dog, whatever. And then it goes the other side of them being, then you find out there's money and control behind everything and it's all just BS. And a lot of it is just manufactured, I don't know how much Minneapolis is under siege, but certainly wherever they got the cameras, it's all theater. You got immoral, what's-her-face, the Somali congresswoman, she's up giving a speech, and then some guy squirts a syringe of vinegar on her or something, come to find out, it's a false flag thing and get sympathy, whatever, whatever. Don't care, doesn't matter, all right? So then you talk about why is your family, now my family, my side, all my children, grandchildren, they're fine. But they grew up with this kind of stuff. And I yanked them out of government school when my oldest was in third grade. It became obvious to me what was going on, and I would pay for it for the rest of my life, no matter how much good babysitters the schools are. Nope. I'm not willing to sacrifice that. Man, I was looking forward to being a grandparent, and I didn't want to have to parent my grandchildren. So I parented my children so they'd be good parents. Boom, I win, ha ha ha, but we financially sacrificed. It was, push starting cars for decades. I mean, we were poor, but we weren't poor. We had a tight family. We were all healthy, had enough to eat, had a small itty-bitty roof over our heads, whatever, and eventually we saved up and partnered and started our restaurant, and then I started, whatever. And we eventually grew to where our advocacy of freedom was supported. What he says. Okay, well, I can say a lot more. Thus, the project, Beware the Ides of March, here comes the philosophy of liberty promotion for this reason, that they understand. That's why we went to Arab Spring. That's why we did, the SB 1070 argument. You got 200,000 Hispanics in the street in front of the Capitol. We're passing out all this stuff for them to understand, what is this about? You left a collectivist country that screwed you over, and you want to make it the same here? What the hell for? This is why this is so popular. You need to abandon this crap that they're shoving down your throat. Here's a WIC program, get food stamp and a phone, and vote Democrat. I'm like, really? That's what you're for? No, it's all pretend. It's all made up. So for me, the activist that I came in touch with, and as I got older, I started when I was in my late 20s. And I go through my 30s and 40s, 50s. Now I'm 60-something. I've been doing this a long time. So what happened when the Lovolution was going on and the show took off on the internet, back when I used to track and give a crap, I was counseling all the revolutionaries. I'm going, look, I know what's going to happen. You guys are, man, you set your life aside for over a year and a half, man. This Ron Paul, last chance. Here we go. Dr. Paul, cure my apathy. Let's go get some. All ages, young, old, it was amazing. Black, gay, whatever, it didn't matter. When they did that, they are so encouraged. They can't wait for Thanksgiving dinner. They're going to explain it to everybody. And I warned them. You only want to make it clear what you believe. Freedom's the answer. What's the question? Ron Paul said whatever. You know, they'll resist. They'll go back. Don't argue with them. There's no argument. You just need to plant a splinter in their mind of what you believe and why. Liberty is about self-ownership. You shouldn't be asking for permission. You shouldn't allow the theft. You shouldn't allow the indoctrination of your children. First thing, get your kids out of government school. You do that, and you just make it clear, and then you stop arguing. You know, so what you doing? You know, how's school going? You know, how's your business? I don't, you know, it's not. Oh, let me help with the dishes. Be an add, not a subtraction, to the enjoyment of family. If you don't do that, they don't want you there for Christmas. So Christmas comes around. I told them this is exactly what's going to happen. Christmas comes around. You're in the back room, you're in the sunroom, you're out back. You know, if you Arizona, you're having Christmas outside. You're out leaning up against the fence. You kind of just eat your burger, whatever. I guarantee one of your extended family, a cousin, an uncle, a nephew, whatever, comes over, grandchild, says, "Hey, did you hear about the?" Really? Oh, of course you had. I mean, you know everything. You're a libertarian. But you hear about this, some controversy thing that made them think that they could go to you and you would understand their concern. You would understand their observation. You would have an opinion that might support, you know, this is effed up. Why was this and how come that? Or what? You answer them. You give them the basic fundamentals. You know, Freedom's answer was the question. You know, peace be upon thee. See you next year. You know, just, you know, wait and see. And all I got to do is wait for all the people that are dying from the shot, you know, that are losing all their savings because they didn't pay attention to the debt. I mean, you just let it happen. I don't have to argue with them. I just present my case and know that the news, circumstances, economics, the vast majority of people on the fence will go one side or the other, and then all of a sudden, you're not crazy anymore. I got in-laws that are in the FBI, on Wall Street, in the Navy, doing that. As a matter of fact, it's amazing, you know, our extended family. But they all know what I think. And all of a sudden, I'm not crazy anymore. Then Donna and I go out on the land. What the crap? What are you preparing for? For what's coming? You know, and there's a sign, just, you know, I get to say, just know on your shoulder it's going to be little birdie being there going, I told you so later.
Ernie, I'm not trying to, you know, say that like, you haven't done your bid for, you know.
No, you're saying why aren't they? Because they're human.
My point is,
and the best way to get them is to just explain your reasons. A decade, 2 decades, 3. What the hell do I care? What are you looking for, the next election cycle? You're still voting?
Oh, no. It's like this is what we're going to run into. We're all going to run into friends and family that are going to be calling us in this next year about silver and gold and whatever. And look, you know, we're all trying to help them out. I get it. But, I mean, it's this, you know, if you haven't figured it out by now, it's
you're
like,
a victim.
Yeah. Not only is it you're going to get, you know, not the great, you know, prices that you could, but also what's more important, though, is that this problem could have been averted before they're like, how do I get in with FOMO?
It's got to be a food thing.
Silver.
You got to be motivated.
Exactly.
There's no atheist in foxholes.
Exactly, Ernie. It's kind of like an alcoholic or somebody that like you can tell them all day that, you know, it's going to make them worse, and they know they're not that stupid, but they have to hit rock bottom and lose everything and get pulled over by the cops and get detoxed in jail and all of this before maybe they find God. And so, you know,
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of the deal. It's human nature, isn't it? I mean, a person's not going to stop smoking until they're diagnosed with lung cancer. Then suddenly they stop smoking. I mean, I'm just saying it's human nature. So how do you deal with that? So when the average person likes the comfort and the simplicity of just giving up their autonomy and their agency to others, which I know you and myself and this audience finds abhorrent, giving your agency up to somebody, but most people are willing to do so to keep it simple. It's like they're willing to do
until their ox gets gored.
No, exactly. But by the time everyone figures it out, it's always too late, and then comes the revolution or the change or whatever, and then
turning.
Exactly. You're making my point for me. So you go through. So it's like, all right. So
somebody's got to advocate for the freedom to get.
You know what? It reminds me of
somebody. I'll do it. Phranq will do it. I'll do it.
So, Ernie, what did you think when you saw, what is it, The Matrix #2, I think it was, when the architect was telling Neo, like, you're not original. Like,
you're the 10th one?
Yeah, you're like 12th or 50th or whatever. It's like, oh, yeah, we've been here before. This is like, ho-hum, I'm just going to yawn. There's nothing there. I mean, granted, to try to say
and then
Neo
in the third, Mr. Anderson, why do you persist? Because I choose to.
Right, exactly. I mean, really, this is just the Matrix. I mean, when you keep doing the same thing. You ain't going to out-sci-fi me, Phranq. Well, you did watch Star Trek Discovery. You lost some cred on that one. But anyway,
man,
I still
muscled
love you.
Through. What a train wreck. But, oh, yeah, and Starfleet Academy's out now. They already canceled it.
That's your favorite show, isn't it?
Go ahead. Already canceled it.
So anyway,
we are inundated.
Oh, I know. It's like we're living in the comedy world. But anyway, I mean, but that Matrix example is I think apropos because it's like we keep going through it, and you start realizing if we keep going through iterations of the Matrix and multiple Neos, then it doesn't mean you shouldn't keep trying, but it does make you step back and go, well, maybe this is just baked in the cake. It's in history. It's in God's natural law. It's in genetics. I mean, who knows? I don't want to get too much into that.
Okay, let me make a quick comment.
It seems like our guest was not understanding.
Let me make a quick comment.
Frustrated with it, but that's my point. Go ahead.
My point is they, them, those know this. They always have. Machiavelli, the royalty of this is how you rule the planet, kind of whatever. This is not a secret. This is why they use the church and from the pulpit. And Martin Luther, when he came out with, printing of the Bible so anybody could read it, they're not the interpreters of the word. Hell, here's a Bible. You can do it. Nope, hell no, man. Heretic. I mean, this. So it's the Pope. And then you get we just posted on the front page, it was, I think it's on right now, and it's the pledge that the Jesuits make. And in that oath that they take, you'll be Jewish, you'll be Protestant, you'll be this, you'll be that, but you're really, infiltrating and getting in, with the club and everything to do what the Pope wants, kind of deal. So that's why, they're always going on the Jesuits, and they go after the Pope. They went after the Knights Templar, they go after the Baker, they go after. This has been going on forever. There's nothing new about this. It's just control, and it's usually the money. All the other stuff, you think these guys, they want to be in charge of, be president? No, they want to control whoever's there, get Trump to do it for them. They're going to lower interest rates. They're going to raise interest rates. They're going to, all these fake battles, if they already got a plan, they're going to do what they're going to do. So we come out of the UN, everyone goes, yay, about time. Now kick them out and put them in Toronto or something. I mean, I don't care. But the point that I'm making is that it is not futile. It is always circumstances play out to where people see the gun in the room, they see the impact on lifestyle, they see what is technology there, which is why we did Occupy. Communication, energy, shelter, health, education, automation, transportation, all these things have now provided technology that you can live a high quality of life. universal high income or high quality of life. Well, anybody give me money? By being self-sustaining. This, and then now we need communicate for commerce. That's why we're working. That's why I'll be speaking about it in Acapulco next month. So this is what I do as an activist, being an activist for personal, individual freedom, as long as you're not violating someone else's life, liberty, property, their pursuit of happiness, which is their circumstances, their happenstance kind of thing, that you're free to do whatever the hell you want. But are you at liberty to? Well, that's where the shiny badges and clipboards and always available gun come in with wearing their fine hat. And they're going to explain it to you. And I'm going, you can't. You're already, like Etienne saying, you're already in violation of whatever deal you made with me. You're a lying sack of snot. Now what? And make them say it. Then what? I don't know. You can't go upriver all the time. You got to, with the flow, you can divert it a little bit. You can slow it down. You can be a boulder or pebble in the creek. I mean, all that doesn't give him any legitimacy. It's not. Once you understand that, all this other stuff starts to come around, and I'm seeing it happen. There's manifestations in the dissent and resistance. There is more turning to a supreme authority, God, in a non-denominational church way of kind of. So then what do they got to do? Israel's got to take over TPUSA. I mean, that's just the way it is. We're going to get Palantir, Peter Thiel, and J.D. Vance going to explain it to us, and pre-crime. It's constant. And now they got AI to craft bullshit for every individual human being. And if we don't have a touchstone to say, what is the purpose of all of this? Is individual rights. They are going to have to abandon that. They're going to have to come out and say it. And a lot of times they are. It's for the collective. It's the village. It's New York. You don't get to own property, and we're going to distribute it the way we want while they're living in gazillion-dollar mansions. This is how it always happens. But who is out there advocating for this lens that you can tell who they, them, those are? They're the ones that won't leave you alone, that steal from you, that make you get a permit, that mandate a shot, that prevent, exemptions from their mandate. How'd the Amish do it? Because they refuse to take benefits. They go, we're not going and fighting your wars. We're not looking for Social Security, we got our own. We're not looking for you to, give us plumbing or, electrification or whatever. We just leave us alone. When they started attacking them on their raising of food, raw milk, cattle, whatever, that's when they put up the Trump signs and went. Did they do themselves a favor or not? I don't know. We'll see how it works out. But I am just so adamant about somebody has to be a pure, not political, just a splinter in people's minds to understand what this is all really about. You are not born a slave. And if you understand that, you'll pick your own battles. And I think that is what's being more and more understood, which is why that is being so targeted. And as the transition economically is happening right now, not later, right now, they are doing everything they can to, they say, oh yeah, you're back on YouTube, you got freedom of speech, but not reach, whatever the hell that means. They shadow ban everything. Where before they were just taking it off. Well, now, okay, you're there. It's just, we're not trending or promoting or whatever. So even when I look for Century of Enslavement, which is James Corbett's documentary, all in the Federal Reserve, you put in Century of Enslavement, and it doesn't come up anywhere. You like page 2, it might be on Rumble or something. I am like, wow, which is why we did open source education.online with all of the best stuff that I like, that James Corbett curates that page. The Philosophy of Liberty program we're doing is for this exact reason, to put a splinter in people's minds that the whole point of this whole thing that they're promising you is the protection of the idea that you own yourself, you're not born a slave. And for Phranq to come up and go, well, yeah, you were, and if you don't like it, move. Really? You know?
I wasn't trying to oversimplify it that way.
I mean, where are you going to go?
I'm not. It's just the fact that he was just asking, the question. He wants a direct answer, and I'm just pointing out if 350 million people say they like the color white and you like the color purple, you're that hard ass about purple. Well, then, what do you expect? 350 million people to change their opinion to purple?
During the Iraq War, there's a show called Boston Legal. They had a case to where a woman refused to pay her income tax as it was funding war. Then you have conservatives going, I'm not going to pay income tax that you're going to use to abort babies. No, that's a line I'm not willing to cross.
Right. I get it. But
so what's the argument? You're 300 million people say you're wrong, so get with the program, shut up.
Ernie, really, I have to get on in just a couple of minutes. I'm here at the school. So seriously, if 350 million people of the 351
I was wondering if Phaedra's standing on the corner waiting for Dad
says X, and you say you want Y, what's the solution? You're one out of 350 million. You're going to sit there and say, I'm oppressed. People hate me. Oh, my God. Everyone's trying to take away my rights. Or do you just go, I'm one out of 350 million. It's just the way it is. Like, how do you interpret that, Mr. Libertarian? What is it? Are you going to play victim about it or just say, hey, I just missed out on the poll? I'm just the minority.
I do exactly what I've been doing for almost 40 years.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. So anyway, there's a lot with this. I really appreciate the show with it. Hopefully we can get your guests back. I'm frustrated. The only thing I'm frustrated about is his assumption that, because he doesn't obviously hear the show because he just hears some guy that he thinks is a normie who's all,
oh, no, he used to, and it just drove him crazy.
No. Look, I could definitely tell a difference between his interpretation of me, and even though you and I may disagree on a few things, I at least respect the fact that you respect my opinion of where I'm coming from. It's not that simplistic. So for that, I give you credit.
It is for me. It really is. It's so simple. You're just a representation of maybe even a vast majority of people that are negotiating for table scraps.
It's not negotiating. It's not, man.
What do you think voting is?
I'm not just obtuse about it. I don't get it. But look, it gets into the, Anyway, look, I have to head off. I appreciate chatting with you. And by the way, after all of this, hopefully no one's listening to us right now. And after all this, I'm off the Trump train. We didn't even get to that part. He's
but I want to go see Melania.
The funny thing is he was interpreting it that I'm drinking the Trump Kool-Aid. Yeah, Trump, get rid of those people. Yeah, Trump. Oh, well, I don't like Trump now. Trump's a meanie. It's so just overly simplistic, and that drove me crazy. I wish we have more time. We can dissect that, not just because I'm trying to defend myself. I can defend myself fine, but I just mean if this is the narrative that's out there, it would be actually a good show to maybe after a few shows kind of deconstruct that. But with that said, I wanted to ask not you because we don't care about you, but the cool person in your family, Donna. We wanted to see if Donna or you would like to join us. My wife and my mother both, even though they're not diehard Trump people, they're very interested to see the Melania movie that's coming out.
I told Donna to call you to see
you want to do it?
If you and your family wanted to go, because I want to go see it. Just because
I won't tell anybody, Ernie. I won't. I
want to see behind the scenes from Melania's perspective. That would be interesting. Probably propaganda bullshit, but she's hot, so whatever.
Yeah,
we get to go out. So you talk with Donna, see if we can work out a schedule. Because I already told her that'd be a fun, Phranq thing. He'd get, his dose of Melania, whatever.
Okay, well, we'll do that. Okay, so I'll give you a call.
Talk about it
the next day or so. We'll try and do it this weekend.
I want to see the Barron Trump thing. He's in the news too. So
yeah.
Interesting how he got caught up in a UK, a woman that knows him somehow. He's talking FaceTime, and a guy was beating her up, boyfriend, rape or whatever. And he calls, 911 or whatever in London, United Kingdom, and trying to get him to go save her. And I don't know if he threw the Barron Trump card, but he finally got him. That guy's in jail and whatever, and he gets a lot of attention on whatever. That could be propaganda for all the hell I know. I have no idea, But I'm waiting for Trump, the mini-series, the Mackey series, whatever.
I know. All right, man.
And then the other counter one.
Well, I'll get in touch with you privately about the Melania movie, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, buddy?
All right. Peace,
all right,
brother.
Bye-bye.
Bye. But I get to say a little something at the end. This is the discussion that I always have in politics, but especially with politicians, candidates, in and out of the Libertarian Party, but mostly the Republicans and Democrats, because as county chairman, I interfaced with the other parties in negotiations for databases with the county, stuff. Then in the mid-'90s, there was a time where a lot of high schools had us, they went to the county parties. They said, can you send someone to come and advocate, our history class? And they would take and combine their government and history classes and go like 2 hours, hour and a half or something, and special presentation by the Republican, the Democrat, and the Libertarian. The Republican go, yeah, kind of what he said, for the Libertarian standpoint. Because a lot of them, were probably more principled than, a lot of the others. The Democrat, I'm a socialist. I came to the Democratic Party because they embraced all of our stances on, so socialism be me or socialist. As time went on, the next year, they kind of did it again. Next year, this went on for like 5-6 years. And so throughout the 90s, I was county chair. And then they just stopped inviting the Republicans and Democrats. Because the feedback from the students was, God, what a bunch of bullshit, These guys are just so full of crap. It's just nope. And so I would come in and I'd do my thing. Well, we'd talk about, the Federal Reserve. We'd talk about sound money. We'd talk about, the court system. We'd talk about anarchist societies, Vikings in Iceland, and, whatever, what do you say you do here? The Declaration of Independence. The basic fundamental, use that philosophy of liberty animation thing a lot. Because it was been around since the early 90s. So this, I've seen it happen. And you'll go, all right, you're junior high, and you go, all right, how many of you guys got a bicycle? Half the class or more raise their hand. How many of you paid for it yourself, mowed lawns, did chores, whatever, that you worked to get that bicycle or what you want? And you get one or two. In the high schools, you get same with a car, be one guy or something. And I remember this one high school guy. It was Centennial High School. It's in the Far West Valley here in the Phoenix area, and it was awesome. It was a new high school. And one of the 17, 18-year-old kids, he's there. Yep, I work, got my own car. It's my car, mine. And I go, well, you're not in it now. I mean, you don't drive it all the time, do you? Who doesn't have a car? Well, everybody raises their hand, a bunch of people. And I go, well, he's not always using it. Let's take a vote. Let's all vote. Yep, it's unanimous vote, in the class. The class votes the majority or whatever that they could use your car. We're going to use your car because you're not using it all the time. You should share. And I go, what do you say? And he goes, no. And well, we had another vote. It was unanimous. The entire planet voted that they get to use your car. Now, what do you say? He goes, well, I'd have to get a gun. And then I go, well, then they're going to force it. They're going to take it. He goes, well, I have to reload. I want to talk to your dad. I mean, that kind of thing. But that was the kinds of examples we get them to put a splinter in their mind. only a few teachers wanted that. A lot of it was private schools. That was a public school, but it was, a lot of it was private schools because we were marketing a lot and we were in, the news and everything. And they think you're going to explain it to. And I remember one school, it was downtown. A lot of politicians stuff. They had their kids go to this charter school that was downtown, and it was called Fees Academy or something like that. And we had ads in a newspaper that whatever. So they had me come. And I'm doing this kind of thing with each class all day. After lunch, the kids, and I go, what's the answer? What's the answer? What's the answer? I wait, and I could get them to do it, right? Especially junior high. Junior high, because they're just going through the hormonal thing. They're a little resistant. They haven't been indoctrinated yet. They don't got all the but they like that freedom thing. So before it goes click, ding, and class was over, about 2 minutes, I'm going, so this and this and this, I had some rhetoric that I do, and I go, so what's the answer? What's the answer? What's the answer? And they go, freedom, freedom, freedom. After a while, I could go, it was always junior high. It was that mindset, which is why, the Hitler youth and the Stalin youth, all these guys, they get them in junior high when they're starting to formulate and lock in their mindset or whatever, because they were going through puberty. Once you do that, it's much harder to get them, to see things. They already locked into whatever they're indoctrinated with, which is why 7th and 8th grade, middle school, 6, 7, 8, or junior high, 7th, 8th, that's where the social studies come in. I'm just a Bill. This is history and social studies, government and social studies, how they call it social studies. So what are they doing? They're indoctrinating you. I went through it. I see it. I'm just predisposed to not. My dad was he didn't like corporations or government. He couldn't really articulate it well. Guy asked him questions and shut up and agree, kind of thing. But he was definitely leaned that way. So I'm going. They became a city councilman and a deputy sheriff, and gave my authoritarian dad a badge. Well, I knew that was a bad idea. But so when I do this. Freedom, freedom, freedom. Marching out of the class. Freedom, freedom. They go into the cafeteria. Somebody said, freedom, freedom. And then all the other people that had my guy did. It so pissed off one of the art teachers. I think it was because at the time they were in threat of being defunded or something, or whatever. She comes in to the next class after lunch, stomping. Call her Stompy. Stomping in, had a tripod and a video camera. Back when they had magnetic tapes or whatever, like a video camera. And they come in, she plops it down, puts the camera up there. I do my thing, and then she starts asking questions. After I gave my presentation, she's in the last third of the class. She's, challenging me. I didn't have to answer her. I go, well, kids, what do you think I would say? And they just slam her. Freems answer what's the question because of something. They don't like that. None too much. So where do you get the next generation before they go through puberty? It locks in after that, and then it's a lot more difficult. You can still do it. You can do it with people, but it has to be circumstance. It has to be the foxhole. It has to be deprivation. It has to be hunger. It has to be violence. It has to be something that, shakes them up. And what the hell just happened? Like the grapes of wrath. At the end of the movie, I don't know what's going on. I want to find out. Okay, go find out. Do you have anything to start from? Some base truth. You own yourself. That's it. Once you embrace that, you're not born a slave. That you own yourself. Your mind is yours. Your body is yours. We get into all the debates and all that kind of stuff because, my lawsuits kind of, scared them into, we had to get in all the debates and so on. And it was just a soapbox that we get to go, you own yourself. That's it. We're done. Next. I would, because you only get 2 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever, to answer a question or debate on whatever, libertarians just skip to the end, So that's why I'm resurrecting that, why we do it the way we do it. Resistance is not futile. Somebody's out there resisting. Somebody's got a sign. That's what I think too. Yeah. And then circumstances, there's no atheists in foxholes. That's kind of the point. There's no, collectivist lover when they got next to a ditch with a rifle to your head. You know what? I'm a freedom guy now. Too late. So this is the battle that I knew I was going to have with Phranq. Why I wanted to do it, because he was advocating for voting. He was advocating for being ruled better. He was advocating for, this guy over that guy because you got to have a guy. And I'm like, nope, you don't. So am I going to, cure Phranq? That's not the point. The point is that anybody that you're having this discussion with, any family member, any in-law, parent, grandparent, kids, nephews, whatever, the country club buddy at your table of whatever, you don't got to get into a long-winded discussion like Phranq and I do. You make your point clear and clean and why. Because I own myself. I used to go like this. I put my hand on someone's shoulder and I go, whose life is this? Well, mine. All right, welcome to freedom. That's it. We're done. What? Well, what about? Hey, either you own yourself or you don't. Now, some politicos, that know the game, they go, well, it's kind of a collective, church, God, state, community, whatever they, well, no, you don't really own yourself. It takes a village to con you out of your money. I mean, but then they've outed themselves. Okay. Everybody got that, right? You guys all do. That's the foundation for which they're going to make the argument. Well, Phranq doesn't realize it, but he does the same thing. He's going, wow, 300 million people think, what that? I don't give a shit. They didn't, they can't vote. I don't own myself, So this is why I do what I do. All this consternation, theater, and everything that's going on, it's all manipulation and general public opinion of when we were during COVID, when we traveled the country back and forth for years in the bus doing activism and shows and meeting with people. They weren't privy to some secret sauce of, they got conned. They were way more, except for the schools. Man, that's where they had their, forts out in the wilderness. As the government, man, they controlled the schools. They got the school board of the schools. We're going to make you, and you have to vaccine schools. That's why homeschooling shot up so much. Private schools shot up so much. And why the universities are going bankrupt. Take a look. Just do some, our universities going bankrupt. Boom, here it comes. And a lot of them, of course, are liberal, private, whatever. They got endowments. They'll start, I don't know how many gay people they can get in, or, they still are not going to give up indoctrinating the future leaders of the world kind of thing. And then they have one of my sons, genius kid, he got nominated to go to the United Nations Youth something. They go get and die. Oh, there's a leader. We definitely want him. He's a, genius, calculus, math, captain of the football team guy. Oh, we definitely want him. And I encouraged him. I said, go. I got a bunch of printed material for you. Put it in everybody's locker. Slide it under everybody's door. Be an activist. Get to the UN. We can really screw them up. Nope. Don't want to have nothing to do with it. No, Dad, it's not going to happen. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So that's where we're at. And I just wanted to, have Phranq on to we keep making the same point over and over, and it gets old. But we do get the news, and we'll get to that next week. Maybe we'll tell you how the movie Melania, it comes out tomorrow or something. I don't even look for me. I don't care. There's nothing I want to see. But I thought that would be interesting. And it's kind of recon, for, what they're slinging. Melania gets to have a say. All right, let's see what's up. Her career and everything, it'd be nice. I get to see her in bikinis, so there's that. So whatever. But but I'm interested in the children. I'm really interested in Barron. I think that in Melania, Barron's going to get, some attention, because I haven't heard 2 words out of him. I mean, I have no idea. And I think he was vaccine damaged there was something happened. He was a different kid. Now, of course, having the resources they have, they could, make use of. Maybe he turned into an autistic super genius kid or whatever. I have no idea. So I think that's going to be really the draw for me, because I think Barron's going to play a role in this thing. And, of course, Melania and Trump, whatever. I don't give a crap. But it's a good time to hang with Phranq and Tamburri. We get along well. We're good friends, and I love his daughter and his family and his mom. It's a thing. We get along a lot better in person than you guys think. But it is definitely on this issue. But the wives are like, nope, not allowed. But but his wife Savarda is a beautiful person. She's great too, and she's a doctor herself. And these guys have been really good examples in resisting the man in their practice. So there's definitely that going for them. And that's how Phranq and I became friends. He would come on the show going on about Obamacare. It was he'd speak at Republican events and district meetings and tell them, man, this is not good. And he was a big Ron Paul supporter, But early on, I think Trump's going to win. I'm not necessarily saying I'm endorsing him. I'm for DeSantis, whatever it was. And and everybody knew, yeah, here it comes. He's going to go Trump train. But that's kind of waxed and waned. Why? He's not a good enough ruler. He's not ruling them right. So that's, why we had Etienne on. And he had come on years ago and did the same thing. But what is Phranq, his defense? But what if everybody don't care? The mass formation psychosis is just immersion. It's just propaganda. It's just every commercial, every bot, every timeline of whatever Kanye and relatives and saying your kid comes back from college, with purple hair and gay and bi, whatever. I'm just, it's immersion, like Aurelius Kennedy was talking about on Tucker. It's a hour and 47-minute interview, and at about an hour and 36 minutes, I made note of it. You go in there and you go, wow, we knew we were up against something. I didn't know it was DARPA weaponized of whatever, but it made sense. It's what we've been up against. It's how they do it. General public opinion thing, which is why the censorship is starting up, and a shadow banning thing I saw happen in 2009. It was the same thing. And here it comes on steroids. And it's because it's all breaking. It's always economics, which will turn into a food thing. So most people that don't have that much or can't, fix their car in an emergency and got to use a credit card kind of thing, and all that's going away too. Well, we're going to limit credit cards to 10% or whatever. But I'm just saying, look, it's coming, and there's nothing that's going to stop it. But what's going to reconstitute after it? That's something to think about. As Alberta is going on the ballot to secede from Canada. Will they be their own country? Will they join the United States? Will they let them? People voted. They went through it. They put it on the ballot. They had people lined up around the block. What's going to happen? It's happening right now for the very reasons we have been articulating for decades. And as frustrating and possibly even boring it is to a lot of people, of the hours and hours that, each week, oh my God, that Phranq and I do. I need him to fully express. He's an intelligent guy. He's got a beat on what's going on out there. He's on his, Telegram, YouTube subscriptions of, CNN, so I don't have to kind of thing. But it's a perfect example and why I wanted to have, because I like him. He's a good guy. He's not evil. He just has this opinion. And we need to debate it in public for you. Because I want you to be fully armed with the rhetoric you need to be able to defend yourself. But you don't have to go long-winded like I and Phranq do. So all you need to do own myself and everything that goes with that. Because if you don't, somebody else does. And everybody is going to find themselves in a foxhole. Here it comes. Peace.